Yeah.
What's up, Doug? Good. Hey, what's up, Will? How you doing, buddy? Good. Have you been?
It's good to see you.
Good to see
It's been a
you.
long time.
Congratulations on your new position.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Yes. Hi, how are you? Good to see you.
Good to see
Long
you.
time no see.
Sir, nice to see you.
How you doing?
All right.
Good to see you.
With my second bracelet, right?
Gotta represent, bro.
Gotta represent. I have my lanyard, but keep it moving. But yeah, it's good to see you. Have a good Mother's Day too.
Yeah, man, just busy, man.
Yeah.
Well, not busy, but yeah, I guess busy.
Yeah, busy in a good.
Busy taking care of her.
Yeah. Thanks for having us.
No doubt. Looking forward to
Yeah.
it.
All right. So.
Deep darkness.
No, sorry.
designee to provide economic development assistance to partially finance the purchase of equipment, the lease or acquisition of warehouse space, and the construction of pilot houses related to the development and implementation of an affordable housing program for low-income or homeless people using 3D technology. And the amendment is as follows. There is no legal objection to this legislation if amended as follows. In the title, line 2, and in section 1, line 1, strike economic and insert community in both places. Yeah, but I still got to read them into the record. Always have to read amendments to record. All right, number 2, in section 2, line 1, strike 1 million and insert 500,000, and at end add RQS 8006 RL 2024-42. This was done by Jonathan McGorry, Assistant Director of Law, on 5/7/24. Who's going up first?
Thank you.
Ms.
Yeah.
Fascia, you have the floor.
Good afternoon, Councilman Griffin and members of the Finance Committee. Thank you for hosting us today so we have a chance to tell you a little bit more about our project, and thanks to Councilwoman House Jones for her support of this project. I'm here with colleagues to share more about our vision to work with the City of Cleveland to bring forth an innovative solution to the challenge of affordable housing in the city. LMM has been on the front lines of social justice, service, and advocacy since our founding in 1969, with a commitment to providing responsive solutions, advocacy, and hope to persons who are oppressed, forgotten, and hurting. We are highly invested in the City of Cleveland, and since 2016, we have been expanding our housing footprint for affordable housing as both a developer and a landlord, primarily focused in the area of the St. Clair Superior neighborhood. But we all know, and we've said this in many different settings, that affordable housing is the solution to homelessness. So with that, we'd like to turn it over to Will Tarter to talk a little bit more about the project, and then my other colleague, Michael Searing.
Hi, good afternoon, Council President Griffin, members of the Finance Committee. Thank you so much for having us. I'm Will Tarter, I'm the Director of Advocacy. Really looking forward to today's presentation to talk about 3D housing, but also talk about the need for affordable housing in Cleveland. We have data and studies that support this need for affordable housing. We're looking forward to providing that data, which is in your packets today. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chair and Committee, for your consideration today. I'm Michael Searing from Lutheran Metropolitan Ministry. Is my microphone working?
Yes.
Oh, good. In my role, we really work hard on ensuring there's shelter for everyone, but we're really growing as an affordable housing provider, and we're excited about the potential that 3D printing would bring that. On also final introduction on the Zoom is our project manager, Saisin Bondit, and I'll just ask him to quickly introduce himself.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Saisin Bondit. In my role, I assist Lutheran Metropolitan Ministry in their housing initiatives from rehab to new construction.
Proceed.
I think we're all set. You want us to go through the presentation?
Just briefly, just give us any high level if you could, so that everybody can just have basic understanding. You don't have to do detailed, and if I could ask all the colleagues if you could save your questions for the end. This was already discussed and passed out of DPS, but just if you can give us some of the high level, and it doesn't even have to be the whole presentation, you just give us maybe executive summary, some of the high level stuff we need.
All right, thank you very much, Council President Griffin, and to members of the committee. We'll start on page 5 of the presentation. Just to underscore the need of affordable housing in Cleveland, a recent Zillow study revealed that Cleveland has the 5th highest racial and ethnic disparity in rent burden among top 50 metro areas in the United States. And this, of course, has a large economic and community impact as well. We also know the number of older adults is increasing in the city of Cleveland, And we have seen older adults bear the brunt of a lot of the rising prices and issues. Unfortunately, the number of seniors is increasing at the men's shelter, which is operated by Lutheran Metropolitan Ministry at 2100 Lakeside. So this conversation about affordable housing and meeting the needs of the changing demographics of the city is a timely one. Do you mind?
And I can, to the chair and the committee, I can briefly comment on the pilot plan of this legislation. We appreciate the potential for the $500,000 contract. It would really have two main focus areas. One would be a deep dive in a feasibility study, planning, researching all of the equipment, pricing, visiting actual houses, and coming back with a plan that would include partnerships really across the city. The balance of the funds would be used to create two pilot homes where we would partner with existing 3D printer company to build two. We can see them, feel them, and that'll help us revise our plan. From there, we would seek additional funds for equipment and as many houses as we could build. So we would just be really excited to launch this project with the initial grant. And I'll just ask Sai, who's on the Zoom, if he could just share maybe briefly any benefits of the 3D printing that he's seen from knowing the companies and being actual on build sites.
Yes, thank you, Michael. From both doing workshops and with in-person discussion with 3D companies, 3D printing companies and developers, the benefits we've seen have been less site errors on site, less construction waste that's created. Also, the efficiencies in getting the house online. Instead of months, we're talking about weeks. So we're depending on the sizes. So there's a lot of benefit to it, and then environmental positive impact to that.
Okay. Anything else to add? All right, so we're ready to take questions, and just a couple of things. I did watch the presentation last week. I do think it's a very innovative way to look at homelessness. But what is what's the lifespan of one of these places? Do we know what the lifespan is generally for these 3D printed houses?
To the chair, I'll ask Sai if you could comment on that.
Yeah, so far the houses that's been on the market and online, the estimated date's no different than, if not even better than traditional built houses. The house that's built in Virginia, the public data has said it's over 100 years on longevity, depending on maintenance and so forth.
So the reason I'm asking that question because there's a lot of different versions of right now. You got container homes, you have these, manufactured homes, you have other kind of like small, tiny homes. So it's these different efforts, and I'm trying to understand, I love the fact what Councilwoman House Jones is proposing, that not only is this the end user, what we're focused on, but also the industry, which we can actually help teach people skills as far as doing this. But can you give us kind of, if I'm thinking about the end user, why we chose this model as opposed to some of the other type of models?
Sure. Thank you, Chair. I would say that we've looked at some of these other models as well, and some of them are also promising. I know there's other efforts on modular housing. Enterprise is leading a committee to review that. In looking at this model for over 5 years now, we just really think it has a lot of potential. We were applied to a national innovation competition by Enterprise for $10 million, and we came in second place. And that came with $0, but I think that really showed us that this is a high potential build for the future, and we think we'll be able to be cost effective and increase home ownership with this method.
So the project manager would be Sai, the gentleman on there, and has Sai done this in other communities before, and does he have a track record, or how do we How did you guys run about him, and how do we make sure that we have some thought around making sure we're getting best practice and somebody who can really implement the project?
Yes. Chair, I'll just comment how our relationship began with Cy, and then Cy, if you could maybe mention your experience and your nonprofit. As I serve as the director of the men's shelter at 2100 Lakeside, and I first got to meet Cy in his capacity as being a professor at Cleveland Institute of Art, where he was teaching his students wayfinding skills, mapping that would benefit our guys. So I think the mission fit came quickly, and he's since been our project manager on our Breaking New Ground Family Affordable Housing Initiative. We've raised over $4 million for homeless to housed families, and Cy's been the project manager of that. But Cy, if you could just give a little more on your background.
Yes, absolutely. So as Michael mentioned, we've been looking at this for 5-6 years, reaching out to the larger 3D printing companies and developers from New Jersey to New York to Indiana, California, Florida. Went to their workshop, went to their construction site, looking at the construction and the process itself. So my experience has been research and also been doing workshops with these organizations. Also looking at talking to different architectural firms that has done this in Austin, Texas, to in Florida, as well as in Indiana. The closest one is a nonprofit out of Detroit. And I'm trying to understand their process and their challenges as well. I'm also a founder of a nonprofit IU Design Lab. We are a 501c3. Our team composed of designers and construction workers and engineers, and our goal is to look at how we could leverage design to support organizations like Lutheran Metropolitan Ministry in looking at different ways to bring housings to the population that they're serving.
Okay. Just a couple of other things, and then I'll turn it over to anybody else for questioning. Just want to make sure I understand this. This is approximately, if I'm understanding this, looking at the Austin, Texas brand, was complete construction about $140K, and that's 1,000 square feet, 2 bedrooms, 1.5 bath. So I'm looking at recent markets here, and that's a little bit more expensive than the average probably house, rehab house in Cleveland. So just out of curiosity, who's your target market? It wouldn't appeal to me if I was a homeless person that I would get a $140,000 house.
Yeah. Yes. So I think there's two parts to the answer. The first is we're currently doing Homeless to House Breaking New Ground initiative, as LMM calls it. This is where we're renovating full gut rehabs, usually land bank houses, and our average price has actually exceeded $130,000 for the full gut rehab. But we're making them affordable to our families coming out of homelessness. Many have vouchers. We have a family stability fund that can offset the rent if they don't. But what I think the more sustainable long-term strategy would be is that this could be an opportunity for home ownership. With the skyrocketing price of homes, to have a brand new home, we're targeting 150 or less as a price point. I would hope that we could combine that with other like mortgage assistance, CDFIs, and make it affordable for a wider range of people who can't really purchase currently.
Okay.
Mr. Chair, just the initial $500,000 would be investing in those pilot homes for leasing initially. But as Michael said, there's some other mechanisms, and we can look at as we get to a place of more clarity and ability to replicate. But the value really is in, as our expert Cy had said, this is something that can be done expeditiously, and for infill and some of those other goals that the city has. But also it's cost effective in terms of the build. But we do, envision over the longer term that home ownership would be part of that that goal?
Well, one of the things that I've learned is that if it costs $300,000 to build a house in Cleveland, it also costs $300,000 to build a house in the suburbs, Solon or wherever else. The problem is that you probably could sell that house in the suburban communities for 350 or so thousand, whereas Cleveland you can only sell it for probably 225, which means that most people will come to us and try to ask for some gap coverage of about 75,000. But in this case, it doesn't seem like that will be needed because pretty much the land will pretty much be cheaper, and you'll be producing at a larger uptake, which means that your costs will probably be down. Is that correct? Okay. And then last but not least, how many jobs do we believe this will create?
In terms of Mr. Chair, in terms of like workforce development, please. Well, I think on the on-site, it takes 2 to 3 individuals on each build, but there's a lot of people behind the scenes in the warehouse. So per home, I don't know if I may ask Michael or Cy to speak to that if they can.
I would just comment that our role would be on the efficient build using the 3D technology, but all of the normal trades, plumbing, electric, all of that would still be necessary. So all of those jobs would still be present, and we'd partner with others on that.
Okay. Well, let me say this. I offer my support to Councilwoman Jones for this project. One of the things when we first came in and reminded me when she first proposed this to me is that I said, we first came into council that we wanted to be first, we wanted to be the best, and we wanted to be different. I think this is one of those projects that hit all 3 of those categories. I think it's very unique. It gives Cleveland an opportunity to be a forerunner. It hits what I call the triple bottom line. It meets an environmental impact, it meets a social impact, and it also meets an economic impact through workforce. So I think this is one of those unique opportunities that I know that there may be some risk involved, but I want to just inform all of my colleagues, many of the economic development deals we do in the city of Cleveland are not 100% guaranteed. So to actually make an investment, and I do want to commend Councilwoman House because the way that she broke it up is we'll do this money up front in order to show some background research and stand up the project, and then work with other community partners to try to find the rest of that money. So I want to commend her. I do want to make sure that I also make all of council aware this is going to be a reallocation of dollars. There was originally $2 million that was scheduled to go to an organization that the organization was not able to get their paperwork together. Therefore, we are looking at reallocating an original ARPA allocation that was $2 million, and now this allocation is about 1.1. When you look at this being 600,000 and then another project that Councilwoman House is bringing forth right now. So I just want to make sure that all of my colleagues know how this is going. And I think I'm going to say the Councilwoman for the closer. So if anybody else has any questions, I'll go to there. I do have, I had Councilman McCormick and Polisic on the schedule. Anybody else, let me know.
Thank you, Chair. I'll be brief as I spoke extensively about this in the DPS committee. So thank you to our friends from LMM for being here today. I just want to also acknowledge Councilwoman House Jones on bringing this forward. I think it's, as I reflected in my testimony in the DPS committee meeting, and I think about the ward I represent, but across the city, it is so difficult to build and rehab affordable housing. So difficult. And I know I don't have to tell any 3 people here that. Expensive, takes years. We 8 years ago launched a project in Ohio City and Tremont, preserving land bank lots to build affordable housing on it, and it's just glacial because the expense, labor, finding the contractor, everything that goes into it. So I want to support this ordinance and really commend the councilwoman and LMM for putting forth alternative options for us here, because the traditional home build, process is you're probably at a baseline of $250 a house, $300, and that's not even, that's the baseline, just what things cost to build a house nowadays. So that doesn't work. for affordable housing. It just doesn't. The city doesn't have ultimate dollars, Chairman, to buy down every single $350,000 house we build in the city of Cleveland. So I just really appreciate this innovative approach. And, understand the fact that, as the councilwoman noted in the last meeting, it's trying something new, right? And I think that we need to do more of that in Cleveland across the board. Of even if you fail, you're going for it, right? And if you try 10 new approaches and 2 or 3 of them fail, or then some of them succeeded, right? And you're making a difference in the community. So again, this is critically important. And the other thing I noted in DPS, and I understand, appropriately, this is aimed at folks that are experiencing housing instability. But if this can scale this as well as modular, I mean, to me, this is also a potential solution for middle-income people, not just low-income folks in the community, because as middle-income people can't afford houses anymore either. So, I think that this could be scaled to solve or to be a part of a solution towards housing affordability across the board. And the only thing I'll note, Chair, that I also noted in DPS to our friends in the mayor's administration, this is exactly the type of opportunity we can leverage the public land that we hold and get rid of it. That we have way too many lots. If this is an opportunity to partner with LMM or others to utilize the publicly owned land in the city to get rid of it for $1 or whatever that figure is, but just to get it into good use, to rebuild the city, to provide affordable housing, to me, we should be pairing the land bank and public land with this type of use and others. So again, I want to commend the councilwoman for bringing this forward, Chair, and really appreciate us thinking about alternative ways to build affordable housing in Cleveland.
All right. I have Councilman Michael Polinsik, and then I have Councilman Brian Casey and Kevin Conlon.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, my honorable colleagues and those who are here at the table. And again, I too want to commend my colleague, Stephanie House-Jones, for her initiative here. One of the questions and issues that I have, and you can maybe explain this to me, you've indicated you're going to build 2 of these structures, correct? Then what's the rest of the $1 million for?
It's 500. It's amended to 500,000.
Okay, so again, the additional funds cover what?
Through the chair to the councilperson, for the $500,000 contract, $150,000 would be for the due diligence, the business planning, the site visits, and the
Okay.
remaining $350,000 would be for the 2 pilot homes.
Okay. Now, I've been doing my own research, and I've got in my car and I've driven to Indiana, outside of Columbus, looking at the manufactured. And I've looked at the 3D printed homes, and I've talked to people. And this is what I've heard, that they work in warm weather conditions, but they're not going to work here. They're not going to work in cold weather conditions because of the amount of insulation that you have to apply to the structure, et cetera, et cetera. And that if you're going to do anything in the city of Cleveland, you need to be gyrating and moving toward manufactured homes because they're constructed in a setting, in a closed door setting. They're built true and square, and you have a new house in 2 weeks that you can move into. The biggest issue that I was told was whoever constructs the foundation, that's the most critical component because the foundation has to be true and square and level. And if it's not, you got a problem because the unit you're plopping on that foundation is square and true. So like Habitat now is building 10 houses in my community for under $1 million. So, and they're manufactured. So I'm aware of all of my colleagues, and I want to commend all my colleagues who are trying to think out of the box, Stephanie and all the rest of us trying to think out, because, I kept telling people we have 18,000 vacant lots, and then someone came back to me and said, you're wrong, Mike. Privately held lots, county held lots, believe it, closer to 30,000, which I said, it can't be. But he said, I'm telling you, it is. So we know we have a monumental situation out here. I'm trying to figure out how we can really jumpstart this. So I'm even looking at my manufactured homes as well, even though the city is not inclined, it doesn't lean toward manufactured, but they're put up in other parts of the country. Again, it's all about foundation and setting, but something about financing, they're telling me you can't get a conventional mortgage on a manufactured home versus a modular construction. But all I'm saying is that I think, and I'm going to be very interested in this, because we got to do something to jumpstart this process. We just can't keep building apartments and letting developers get wealthy off of us. If we're going to rebuild neighborhoods, it has to be with families. It has to be with single-family homes and duplexes. I'm convinced of that. I've had enough people tell me that are in the know that if we're going to rebuild, I don't care what neighborhood, it's got to be single-family homes, duplexes, and we have to have stakeholders. We have to have people living in those that live there, that are not LLCs that are in Texas or California or somewhere. They got to live there. So all I'm saying, that's why I wanted to explain, and I didn't realize that it had been reduced to 500,000. But I'd be less than honest to tell you what I've been told. People say that in this climate, that type of housing is not going to work. And I guess we'll find out shortly when you construct them. And how soon would this take place? Do you have an idea?
Yeah, through the chair to the council person, we would be doing our feasibility within 6 months and build our pilot homes within a year of that. And related to the climate, excellent points. One of the methods is to build the house almost like the panelized modular, to build the pieces in a controlled environment in a warehouse and bring those concrete panels to the site. And so that would address some of the issue. And I would also ask Sai, if you could just comment on some of the similar climates or cold weather builds that you're aware of.
Yeah, thank you, Michael. Yeah, we're looking at from the 5-6 years of research, reaching out to the 3D printing companies, developers that does these construction. We're understanding that under our climate in our region, the procedure or the process would be like a precast system where we would print in the warehouse in a controlled environment where the concrete can cure and be in a controlled environment, and then we would be delivered on site and installed. Usually that takes one telelifter, one person handling that, and then 2 or 3 other people guiding these panels into onto the foundation. In terms of constructions that's in our environment, like in Virginia, they've increased the insulation gap between the 2 walls a little bit more to help with the weather and also the temperature wise, and then the water penetration. The closest to us is in Detroit, that the walls are printed and has a large cavity about 8 to 9 inches in between, and that's where we put our spray foam insulation, which helps structurally and also helps with the weather barrier issue.
What you're proposing, or what you're telling us, it's more of a hybrid construction than what I've seen where they build this square over the foundation and then they just wrap around it with a continuous pour of concrete. So what we're hearing here is off-site panelized construction. Then you're going to bring them to the site to erect. Okay? Well, that's different. I mean, I'm interested. I'm very much interested, and I hope that you'll keep us all in the loop on this process, because we got to get houses built, and they've got to be affordable. That's the thing. They've got to be affordable, because right now I'm reading that the majority of Clevelanders are now renters, which is not good. I'm also reading that rents are either approaching $1,000 a month rent, and in some cases over. That's unacceptable. Our folks can't afford that. So I'm figuring that amount of money, that's a house payment. But we got to figure out how we get that. How do they get that down payment? How do they get that upfront money so they can get in there? And then, as we've talked around this table, the banks have got to be partners with us. They got to be able to provide mortgages because they have redlined the east side of the city. That's clear to all of us. They have redlined this city. So we need all partners. We need all hands on deck. So I commend you folks. I commend my colleague. And this is something we got to be looking at very closely, because if this can, in fact, work, then we got to figure out how to multiply it. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Councilman Brian Casey.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I also want to commend Councilwoman House Jones on the initiative. Mr. Chairman, to our presenters, just some questions in regards to Section 1 of the legislation. What equipment will be purchased? I think it's 350,000 going toward 150,000 going toward the purchase of equipment. Is that correct? Tell us again.
Through the chair to the council person, the 150,000 would be for the due diligence, which is the business plan, which is site visits to similar climates to the companies that provide the equipment, and we would want to include council people in their feedback or site visits as well. So that's on the business plan side. The remaining 350 is for the 2 pilot houses, and for those, we would pilot those without the purchase of our own equipment. We would partner with partners that build these panelized concrete walls, as we mentioned, to demonstrate proof of concept. From there, we would seek equipment purchase.
All right, Mr. Chairman, to our presenter, it says here, purchase of equipment, all right? The lease or acquisition of warehouse space and the construction of pilot houses. So what's the equipment that we're going to be purchasing?
Okay.
No,
Would you allow Councilwoman House
a point, yes, go ahead.
on that point, Councilwoman?
Yes, so again, there is not going to be a purchase of the actual equipment. It's just not going to be a purchase of equipment, so that could be taken out. Short answer.
Okay, so we're not purchasing equipment.
Again, and I'll just point a clarification. When it was originally proposed, though, it was going to be $1 million to actually purchase the 3D equipment to manufacture a home. Based on conversations, people was like, well, we don't know what's going to do, and so that is the reason why it was amended to cut the budget in half and only do the due diligence and pilot 2 homes, which there would negate no longer trying to go forth at this phase from council's investment to actually get to technology that will have to be an outside partner.
Okay, thank you for that clarification. And Mr. Chairman, to our presenters, does this mean we're not leasing or acquiring any warehouse space either, or we are? Now, you guys should know, you're getting the money.
Yeah. You want to speak to it?
Through the chair, for the pilot, we would not need significant warehouse.
All right, so we're not purchasing equipment or leasing or doing an acquisition of any warehouse space?
Correct.
Okay, I'm just reading the legislation, right? That's all I'm doing. So 150 is basically administrative costs, I guess is what we would call it. Pretty much so, you're agreeing, right? All right.
To the chair, to the councilman, page 9 is the pilot plan you'll see listed, as well as the continuation plan that provides a more thorough breakdown of the differences between the 2 phases of the project.
All right, and then for the 350,000, what is the cost to build one, actually? Mr. Chairman, to whoever would like to answer that, because 350,000 doesn't seem like a lot to build 2 homes. But I know it's only partial, but what's the total cost of a home?
Through the chair to the council person, our ultimate target after the pilot phase is 150,000. We figured for 350 we could do 2 fairly small demonstration pilot homes, and we feel comfortable that we could demonstrate that at that amount.
Okay, Mr. Chairman, to our presenter, so the 350 is enough to cover the cost of building the 2 homes.
Correct.
Okay, and then do we know where these homes are being built, Mr. Chairman, to our presenters?
Through the chair to the council person, we don't have site selection yet. I will say that our current builds have been in the Ward 7 area. This is our Homeless to House Family Initiative, and we it chose that area in part being as close as possible to St. Martin de Porres, which is an excellent school. We consider that our ground zero, and we've placed our houses near there. Ultimately, I would think this could be citywide if the city would desire such.
All right, Mr. Chairman, to the presenters, do we have a 3D house currently built in the city? Is there one? There's not one built. This is brand new. I don't even know what one looks like, so I'm just wondering. All right, thank you very much. And Mr. Chairman, this is reallocated dollars, right? Is there going to be a plan when, I'm assuming this isn't going to be the first amount of dollars that are going to be scaled back from something that isn't going to be able to, this is not a reflection on you guys. Is council going to come up with or work with the administration to come up to how we're going to reallocate dollars that are going to get scaled back?
Right now, in going over all of the allocations or all of the legislation that we passed, and I have begun, I've worked on the tracker with our policy folks. There is no other money that is scheduled to be reallocated. However, there are two potential projects that we are uncertain of, and the Economic Development Administration has pretty much given the former or the people who received that until the end of the month to come up with their capital stack. So until when we do have dollars that are freed up that need to be reallocated, that's when we'll have that discussion. But in this case, when I looked at the scope of looking at the pot of money that we set aside for catalytic projects, those other projects were passed before Councilwoman House Jones became a council person. Therefore, I felt it was legitimate for her to request for a reallocation of that $2 million, which is along the lines with what everybody else has pretty much had different investments in their ward as well.
All right, thank you, appreciate it. Thank you, guys.
And we're going to get together to discuss whatever's left over once we see where all the projects that are out, because I'm also watching very closely, Councilman, which contracts and which money that we've actually legislated and has not been contracted yet, so that I can have a good idea of that. So I'm in the process of going over all of those dollars, okay? All right, Councilman Kevin Conwell.
Yeah, I'll be real quick, Mr. President. Some of my questions have been answered. I just don't know. I mean, I'm there, but the 3D affordable housing, I never seen anything like this. And what city or where have this been implemented at, through the chair?
Through the chair to the council person, the closest city that has a house is in Detroit. There's been quite a few builds where a major company, a printing company, is located in Austin. There's also been builds in Virginia. There are two companies in Ohio that are just starting one house outside of Dayton that's partially completed. So also in the last page of the package, it had a picture of what Sai on the Zoom call did a rendering of what we envision it could look like, and I think it can be, the technology affords it to be beautiful homes.
So if somebody had known when they were in Detroit, they could took a picture and sent it back to us. I'm not mentioning any names. You know what I'm talking about. But were there any problems or any issues when this house was built? And who reached out to the people in Detroit or in Austin, Texas?
Through the chair to the council person, I'll ask our guest, Sai, if he could comment on the Detroit build. I know it was an organization called Citizens Robot, and Sai, if you can share any challenges or successes for that matter.
Yes, some of the challenges were just learning curve, understanding the process and the sequence of the construction. Really, it's just a new process, and the learning curve was the biggest challenge to it. And their setup was a robotic arm printer that's set up in the warehouse, and understanding the time of the year to build and construct, and also to find appropriate partners to come in to do the electrical build outs, the plumbing build out, and understanding the timing of all that. So those were the biggest challenge that, for my discussion with them, have been.
So when a project is, see, I don't know anything about 3D housing. Did you run into any cost overruns through the chair? Do you have the scope of the project, and who were the project who was the project manager? Was it you through the chair? Then can you answer me? Who was the project manager? He mentioned the issues and concerns. Were there any risk? Were there any cost overruns during this project, being that it's new? The longevity of the house, how long the house might last, all those kind of issues and concerns.
Yeah. Through the chair to the council person, and I apologize, Cy might have froze. So we, as Lutheran Metro Ministry, we're not part of that project. It's part of, I think, their challenges and learning curves will help us as we establish ours. I am aware that their project, they did, I believe, a $40,000 buy down to try to make it more affordable, but even at their sale price of $224,000, that's expensive in my mind, as we've discussed at this committee. I think that if we can get the $150,000 price point, it'll be affordable to many more people. And I don't know, Cy, if you had any more comments on the project management or your involvement.
Yeah, I think he's back. You need to look at the project management.
Difficult to hear. No, my involvement was just due diligence and research, trying to understand their process and their challenges, and also what worked for them. And so I think there's a collective throughout the United States that developers and partners are trying to make this realistic, is that all of us are sharing the lessons learned. And part of my role was to reach out to these organizations to understand their process better and the challenges, so that we could have that lessons learned to incorporate that into Cleveland.
When you looked at lessons learned, was there any risk or issues or concerns when you were putting the house up? For example, is the home better in the winter or better in the summertime? Do we, looking at the defects or anything like that? Or does it have any slab or what? See, I just don't know. I have a lot of known unknowns. It froze again.
So one of the biggest benefit is the reduction of construction waste. Also, a lot of these homes have been 3D printed, are considered airtight, which means it's better mechanically, more efficient, lower utility bills. That's what we've been learning from partners throughout the United States. In terms of defect, I guess no difference than traditional build. If there's any error, we cut a section out, or they cut a section out and reprint that. So I think the defect it varies, and if there is, I found it on site that with these partners that they're able to fix it on site at that time.
What did the appraiser, through the chair to the director, what did the appraiser say? When you had an appraisal, because this is new to someone doing an appraisal also, and they said what, like the highest and best use?
Through the chair to the councilperson, I'm not sure how the appraisals went, and Cy, do you have any comments or experience in other parts of the country how appraisals have gone?
I understand that in Austin, the organizations there did both for affordable housing as well as market rate housing. And I know that the market rate housing went for between 350 to 400, depending on the square footages and the bedrooms. So they were able to utilize both affordable housing numbers and the fair market or market value. But in terms of appraisal, I don't know.
appraisal also, although I'm going to move forward with the council lady, but the appraisal would tell us about the windows, the roofs, the porch, how long it's going to last, what is the highest and best use. That appraisal will even tell you something when you look at lessons learned, because they'll do they'll say how long the roof might last in this house. That appraisal would tell you that, which is very important. And who could you give it to, Mr. President, the appraisal? Because you know when you purchase a house, you want to bring in somebody to appraise, to look at the windows and to do an analysis of it. And they would tell you, you know, when they do home inspections. And we're going to look at the exterior as well as the interior of the house. Because when you put in together the house, you got to look at those things also. Because he just mentioned to the chair lessons learned. I don't know anything about a 3D house. But that appraiser would tell me something from an expert opinion. All right, let me see, do I got any more questions? You were talking about, through the chair, train and workforce labor, meaning what? And what are the average wages? And you're going to recruit someone to do it, or where we at?
Through the chair to the council person, we are establishing a new vocational training program for workforce development that looks at building maintenance and repair. And so as an extension of this, we would be looking at training folks on this 3D printing technologies. And so that would be a next phase, if you will, of this project. For the initial phase of the project, we would be, and as part of the due diligence and part of all these great questions will be answered in the due diligence and working with an already established provider. But we would be looking to become a provider ourselves at some point and then employ a workforce with these skills that we expect as a new innovation that takes on, you know, a life of its own, hopefully, that the employment will be there. Generally, these positions are in the middle 50,000 range currently for maintenance construction type jobs as a starting range, so which is well within the living wage parameters, and which is better actually in the city of Cleveland because of our established trades. The 25 to $27 an hour, 50,000 a year, 50 to 55,000 a year, in that range.
That's good living
As
wage.
starting.
You need that appraisal, I'm telling you that right now. Before you start putting something up, and he was talking about lessons learned, then we know what's going on in the house in Austin, Texas, and someone can look at what's going on in the short run as well as the long run. You just need that. That's important. You know, and then a warranty also for the house when someone get into the house to purchase it. Those things are important because that appraisal will give you that expert opinion. That's it. How soon you think you might can get the appraisal?
Through the chair to the council person, let me ask Sai if you think that those documents from any partners would be available.
I could reach out to them and the individuals that I've been in contact with to see if they're willing to share those informations. I just want to also add that the construction of the house is very similar to our existing process where it's concrete masonry unit. The only difference is that we're actually printing from a computer and it's controlled, designed digitally and printed. So there's a labor that's cost savings. So in terms of durability, the closest to kind of comparing it is commercial projects that's built with concrete masonry units. So it's very durable. It's been tested. You know, it's in some ways the same material. It's just printed.
Tell me now what he's talking about. If with your appraisal will also tell you through the don't just look at Detroit or San Antonio. And an appraisal will also talk about a latent defect. The latent defect when someone get a house, was there anything hidden in the house so that when you purchased the home, was there a crack in the slab, or did we have on the roof had a defect in it, whatever the case may be. It would tell us the history of what's going on with it. You need that. That's important. So That's where I'm at. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilwoman House, would you close us out?
Thank you to members of the Finance Committee. So just in context, one of the things that when looking at trying to provide solutions to really address our affordable housing crisis that Cleveland is in, really trying to see how our community can get in a place from being a creator and not just a consumer of things. And so when having the conversation with LMM, it really was focused on what would it take for us to actually be a purchaser of the 3D technology, right? So that we are not having to depend on contracting, waiting for other builders and developers to do right by our people. Like, we would actually be more in the driver's seat to be able to create the houses that we need with strong partners. And through this conversation, just like anything with policy, what you start off with might not necessarily be what you end with. And so that is where this focus is in doing a level of due diligence, even though it might not be seated directly the technology piece, but we do think it's a worthwhile endeavor to explore. And as you know, the conversation about appraisals and what does it look like and how will the houses hold up in our community and what will be the impact and whether, and how will we get the cost, how can we get it so low? All of those things are very important questions that need to be answered in a due diligence period. And because it's something new that has never been done, we absolutely have to and think it's worthwhile to explore that due diligence phase. And so that's how we have gotten to this point, kind of marrying all the different ideas, but be able to say, hey, is this doable? Understanding, again, even with home renovations, again, LMM, they have been doing the work. I mean, the last home renovation that they've done in our Ward 7 community, it was upwards of like $275,000. So even the things that we say that we want aren't even, getting to us in an affordable manner. And so I think really trying to take the time to explore how do we position Cleveland to be a creator and not just a consumer of housing products that could really try to help and bring some things in the mix, and even having those conversations with financial institutions of what it would look like. So these are some things that we really would like to do, over this 18-month period. And so thank you to Council President for allowing this legislation to be heard, and hopefully we can earn the support of committee members. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Councilwoman House Jones, and once again, thank you for an innovative approach to government. I know that government sometimes has to take risk, and this is one of those things that we really need to do in order to try to, like I said, like you just said, be a producer of these items. I do want to make sure that I can express to you all that as this is implemented, that we do have a community benefits process, and even though a lot of this is ripe with community benefits, taking care of homeless, building on wealth, we just express for that whole community process to be outlined as you're doing your due diligence, so that we could actually visibly see the agreement that's on place and work closely with Councilwoman House Jones and anybody else that we might need to in order to make sure that that we're working with you around that. Councilman Conwell, did you have something else?
Yeah, you know what? I understand risk, but you measure risk as well, Mr. President. And I'm here, but while you implementing and you building your case, and you know there's a risk, then you try to seek to understand the risk, and you get that appraisal, and when you look at lessons learned, how you gonna look at lessons learned and you're not looking at an expert opinion, and that's the appraiser. Also, you gotta have that. So I know we have to take risk, but if I get an expert opinion on the probability of my risk, then I can make managerial decisions. So I understand, Mr. President, but we need the appraisal, though. That's important. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Seeing no other questions, ordinance number 339-2024 will be heard by the full council tonight. Looking forward to it. And Mr. Searing, thank you for the work of you and all your family throughout the history of LMM. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you, Council.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
All right, next up we have ordinance number 343-2024 as amended by Councilmember House Jones, an emergency ordinance authorizing the Director of Economic Development to enter into a grant agreement with the United Way of Greater Cleveland or its designee to act as the city's agent to partially finance costs for the development, administration, and the providing of small business and participant support associated with the development of a universal basic employment and opportunity pilot program. This is has an amendment. This is for $600,000, and there is no legal objection to this legislation if amended as follows. 1, in the title, line 2, and section 1, line 1, strike economic and insert community in both places. Number 2, in section 2 at the end, add RQS 8006 RL 2024-41. This was dated 4/3/24. Signed by Stephanie Melnick, Chief Corporate Counsel of Law. If the United Way folks and all of the guests, and I do believe that we have 3 guests that will be speaking on behalf of Universal Basic Employment. So I'm going to ask if the United Way folks, Mr. Surratt and anybody else with his team can come up, as well as Mr. Devin. And then also the guest speakers that we have, if you guys could join us at the table. I'll start off with Mr. Surratt and I started to call him Bogart, but Mr. Cotter. But I'll start off with Mr. Surratt and Mr. Cotton, and then we'll hear from our guests as they want to speak as subject matter experts around universal basic employment. And once again, you did do this presentation already, so really just kind of give us the high level, and then my colleagues can go on any questions, okay?
Sure.
Thank you.
Council President, council members, thank you. I'm Ken Surratt with the United Way of Greater Cleveland. Here, I think you're familiar with the United Way. For 100 years, we've really been trying to address people in crisis in this community, really, especially those in poverty. Really, in recent years, we've learned, and thinking about poverty is really a measure of income. We really want to go deeper to the roots of that and find and fund innovative solutions to address those roots. And we feel that universal basic employment is one of those. Our role in this, very similar to something we've done before you, is right to counsel. So really serving as a fiscal agent, as a steward of the funding, as well as other funding that we hope to receive. Provide that space for Devin to be able to incubate this idea, learn from you all, from the community, from the employers that we're connected with, what it will really take to make universal basic employment a successful pilot. And I'll just be quick and end here. But just this morning, I saw in Cranes that is a op-ed written by Emily Campbell from the Center for Community Solutions, talking about, unfortunately, workers having to choose between a career path and taking a higher paying job, or potentially losing benefits that are worth much more than that salary increase. We see this as a way to help bridge that and make sure that people don't have to make that kind of tough decision. And lastly, to Council President, and what I heard you say earlier, the item before this, is that you want us to be first, you want us to be the best. This is an opportunity to do that, and this is a process in which we can learn and be able to leverage other funding and resources to come to this community to help our employers and employees.
Great. Mr. Cotton.
Thank you, Ken. Yeah, so hi, Devin Cotton here, founder of Universal Basic Employment. UBE is a public policy initiative with the mission to demonstrate that a jobs guarantee policy can eliminate poverty and be a stop payment on its many symptoms. We do this by subsidizing the employment and salary for 100 under and underemployed Clevelanders at $50,000 for 3 years to demonstrate that a jobs guarantee policy is a simultaneous investment in people, place, and business. With the legislation here today, the funding will help us to do 3 things. It'll help us to build the capacity necessary to prepare the small businesses and support partners to provide the services and employment needed to run the pilot. Putting 100 individuals to work at a $50,000 salary requires significant infrastructure, and we want to ensure that this pilot and the wage subsidy does no harm to the pilot participants themselves, as well as to the small businesses that we have on our main streets. Secondly, the funding will help us to retain a research and evaluation team with a national pedigree to influence state and federal policy. Our ultimate goal is to shift state and federal policies on poverty that often leave the cities with poverty at their doorsteps without natural solutions to combat those symptoms. What we're building here is the first piece of literature in a larger movement to create better economic guarantees overall. And then lastly, the funding from Cleveland City Council will help us to leverage additional investments from local philanthropy, corporate philanthropy, national funders, venture forward investors, and private donors to put $15 million directly into the main streets and the communities in Cleveland. With a third of Cleveland residents living in poverty, along with half of its children, Cleveland City Councilman is intimately aware of these pervasive negative impacts that have trapped Cleveland residents into the cycle of poverty. Ordinance 343/2024, if passed, will help Cleveland transition from being one of the poorest cities in the nation to being the leader in solving one of the city's greatest ills and changing the trajectory of our country. Thanks.
Thank you. And we have three speakers that would like to speak on their behalf. Whenever we do public comment, it is always the prerogative of the chair. Councilwoman House has asked me to ask three people to speak. I will caution you that you each have 3 minutes apiece, but we'll be flexible as possible, okay? All right, so who would like to go first? I have Randall McShepard, and then Doug Bennett, and then Jeffrey Verespi. So I take it, Mr. Shepard, you're going first.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and members of City Council. My name is Randall McShepard. I just want to say that this topic is very, very near and dear to my heart. I come to you bringing expert testimony from a number of perspectives. I am a member of the UBE Advisory Committee. I believe I coordinated the first public meeting to try to get the community engaged in this project, and very proud of that and the work that Mr. Cotton has done. I spent my first 8 years of my career helping disabled and disadvantaged populations find jobs at vocational guidance services. Started many training initiatives there that have, many are still running quite successfully. I'm a former Campbell-appointed chair of the Workforce Investment Board. I was the chair here when we merged the city and the county workforce systems, which is still bearing fruit to this day. I'm a small business owner, co-founder of Riddall Green Partnership, and appreciate the angle of small businesses that this particular effort brings forth. And finally, I'm the chairman and co-founder of Policy Bridge, a public policy think tank. You heard Mr. Cotton say that this is a public policy initiative. We are in the midst of pushing forward an urban agenda for Cleveland with the great help of Councilwoman Stephanie House Jones. And that effort is focused on economic mobility. So we certainly believe that this is the kind of radical, bold, policy change or shift that we need to have in place to do things. There's an old saying, if you always do what you've always done, you'll always get what you always got. It's up to us to lead in this city and to show that these kinds of efforts can make a significant difference. I firmly believe that Cleveland can be the national model for this. I go back, putting on my Policy Bridge hat, to a few thoughts. One, in 2019, our Federal Reserve Bank released a report on the black-white wealth gap, and they said they studied 10 or 15 different potential factors, and they concluded that differences in wages is the #1 reason that we've contended with this challenge for many, many years. Also, when you talk about things like home ownership, transportation, and healthcare, it really boils down to people having competitive wages and being able to be gainfully employed to have a chance at some normal quality of life. I really also appreciate the fact that this provides a shot in the arm to businesses. I can't say enough what this would mean for a small business to be able to say, I don't have to worry about the salary. I can just focus on the benefits and such, which really helps that business in a significant way. So you're going to help businesses as much as you're going to help the individuals that go through the actual program. It's also important for me to note, putting on my hat as a corporate grant maker and the vice chair of the Cleveland Foundation, that it's important that all partners show up. And it really would send a significant message for City Council to say, we're in on this, we're going to follow you, you're setting the right precedent, and many will follow you and be happy to follow, knowing that the city has this kind of a commitment. And I'll close, I think that was my 3 minutes. I'll just close from the whole point about the social safety net. Our very first Policy Bridge research report we wrote talked about an economist from Princeton, Cecilia Rouse, who said that for every cohort of 18-year-olds that drop out of high school, it costs this nation $192 billion in lost taxes and, and the social safety net that we have to pay out. So it doesn't seem too daunting to me to think about us challenging the federal government and others when you look at those kinds of numbers. Although it may seem like $15–20 million is expensive for this pilot, the return on investment could be absolutely over the moon. So thank you for your time.
Thank you. Next, we have Doug Bennett.
Good afternoon, council members. I represent Step Forward, which, for those of you who don't know, we are the community action agency for Cuyahoga County. So we deal a lot with people who are in a distressed situation. But we also do workforce development as one of our programs. In 2018 and 19, we had over a couple hundred residents in the county come through our doors looking for job opportunities. Now, that did slow a little bit during COVID because there were a lot of safety nets out there, including a lot of emergency funds that help with people with their rent and their utilities and everything to that effect. And as we know, that is no longer there. We actually have, as a professional development group and organization, we have about 6 or 7 people that we have on staff that try to find people employment. We help them with resumes and the such. But this particular program, in and of itself, if we can find business partners that can actually hire more than just one person at a time, the impact would be tremendous, especially at that salary range. Even the companies that we work with in the community partners, which is about 75 in Northeast Ohio, again, some of those jobs are $14, $15 an hour. The maximum that we've been able to find thus far is about $30 an hour, which again was one person. And they are able, and they're striving and thriving really well. The rest that we find these other opportunities for, they're making it, but they won't make it as well as somebody who's making the kind of salary. So that's the reason why Step Forward has really gotten involved with this project, and we think that this would be wonderful for the community, and as Randall said, also for the business community as well. So thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have Jeffrey T. Verespi. Did I say that right?
Yes, you did. Thank you, Council President and members of Cleveland City Council. I'm Jeff Verespi. I'm the Chief Operating Officer at Cleveland Neighborhood Progress, a member of the UB Advisory Committee, and CNP is honored and glad to be here in support of universal basic employment and Devon's innovation. I think this is a powerful team, and this is community development adjacent work. Community development is about investing in people, and it's investing in place, and it's investing in businesses. Universal basic employment does that. It does it really well. There are a handful of things that we're often tasked about as CMP. One of those, to what Randy said earlier, is bringing in new investment to our city. And we don't want to, we cannot continue to rely solely on funders in Cleveland from the private sector, from the public sector, from the philanthropic sector. Universal basic employment is the type of work that can attract national investment, that can attract new sort of investment and philanthropy into Cleveland, and that is something that we should fully get behind and do our part to do a down payment. And lastly, I just want to share, I think a lot of these great works come out of the brilliance that is of the great mind of Devon's work. Started at Burton Bell Carr, went to the private sector, worked at Old Brooklyn CDC, and is now taking all of those lessons from the private sector, from CDCs, to this policy initiative. I know they're members of Cleveland City Council. They have come from the CDC world, members of the administration, and from the private sector. I think there are lessons to be learned in our neighborhoods that all apply back to UBE, and CMP is happy to support that.
Thank you. Any other closing remarks before we go into questions and answering from our guests? Okay, just a couple of questions that I have, and then I'll turn it over to Councilman Mike Polensik or anybody else has questions. Just want to make sure that I get this clear. So UBE basically is a supplemental payment. This is not just us floating the entire salary for 100 individuals. This is 100 individuals, if I'm not mistaken, that are already employed, and that this will kind of help with the gap. Or am I wrong?
Yeah, To Council President, UBE is going to cover the entire salary.
The entire salary for 100 people.
It's for 100 people, so that is
Okay.
$15 million. Part of the reason that our goal is covering the entire salary is because we want to demonstrate what it means to make small businesses competitive in this new market of wages and job that we're trying to create. The goal of using small business in that infrastructure that currently exists is because small businesses and nonprofits and individuals like churches and diners and things like that have the capacity to take on the most vulnerable individuals with the least amount of work experiences, least amount of technical skills, fewest soft skills and things like that, and felonious backgrounds. Place matters, and having those jobs in place and having people being able to find a living wage in place and demonstrate some work experience allows us to do that. Additionally, the redirection to keep the skin in the game from our small businesses that are currently already paying $13, $14 an hour, we in partnership, if you receive the wage subsidy, we're asking you to redirect that $13, $14 an hour to improve job quality. So that's providing benefits, health, dental, eye, those things, types of things, pay time off, family medical leave, and things like that to improve job quality. So additionally to a wage issue that we're currently having, we have a job quality issue as well.
So a couple of things, just want to make sure, and I think Mr. McShepherd can answer some of this. Don't we do some of this with businesses that we do work with workforce already, that we actually try to provide incentives to businesses that we place through workforce? But don't we have programs like that already? Just curious, I'm trying to make sure.
Mr. Chair, yes, there are many programs that provide supports to employers in an effort to incentivize them to hire residents in cities like Cleveland, but nothing that comes even close to this. It's typically maybe helping with equipment, supplies, maybe some tax incentives, but nothing really addressing the actual salaries, and certainly not supplementing the full cost of a salary. This is the first I think this has ever been done in the country.
Okay. So a couple of things that I want to make sure that I understand. This is 100 people.
Yes.
Not just in Ward 7, but across the city.
Yeah, so part of what this 2-year runway is going to do is help us find the right neighborhood corridor that this pilot should be run in. Part of what the due diligence that we're going to be going through is figuring out where we should highlight and locate this pilot, that we have enough small businesses and enough participants that are willing to go down and be a leader in demonstrating what it means to eliminate poverty. So no, we're not going to do this solely in Ward 7. If the data comes back, and which data we are happy to openly, publicly share, that, hey, this is the right number of businesses in this particular neighborhood or corridor, we're happy to share that information back out. But no, it is not for sure going to happen in Ward 7.
Okay, thank you. Just out of curiosity, you want to understand which corridor it goes to. And one of the things that I'm a big fan of is programs and things complementing each other. Councilwoman House Jones just put forth an initiative to try to house the unhoused.
Yes.
Why wouldn't we just try to work with existing things to try to make sure that we're complementing? If we're trying to, when we get folks in houses, they're going to need employment, they're going to need other things. I'm just trying to understand what is the strategy and how do we look at this?
I think Councilwoman House Jones has a point.
Can I add to that?
Yeah.
Please.
Yeah, so the thought is, again, is how do we actually use data to actually start driving public policy, right? One of the challenges is we don't have the comprehensive data to be able to inform where should this go. And as part of the 2-year investment, the $600,000, if this is approved, it will go to is for us to do some really deep dive research analysis to be able to determine where something like this can happen, and which would be singularly identifying the neighborhood corridor based on small businesses. And honestly, I mean, right off the top, we just couldn't say. You see what I'm saying? If you don't have the businesses that are willing to participate, right, then you will not be able to do it in a specific specific neighborhood. And that's why we want to take the time to be able to analyze where could we have some success, identify maybe 3 to 4, 3 to 5 neighborhoods, and then you have to do a period of contacting businesses saying, are you willing to do this, you know, and going through the journey. So that's the reason why it's not saying it's going to go here, because again, we do not have the data to say it, and we need that time to be able to build it up, to make informed decisions so we can set the pilot up for actual success, not based on feelings, based on data.
Councilwoman House, I gotta say and be honest with you, I think in the years that I've seen government, I have never seen a council person that didn't try to pass legislation that wasn't solely, or at least making sure peace goes to our neighborhood. So I commend you for that, because that's
the reason why I'm doing this
that's unique.
because again, the issue here is because we are looking to actually develop a systems approach. While we are trying to start in a neighborhood, that is not the goal. The goal is to actually change state and federal policy so that we can have everyone. We are spending a significant amount of money in social safety net benefits that are not benefiting our people. It's not working. And so again, if we can use this time and this pilot to utilize and work with the federal government, see how much money we're already spending it, and getting us to think of the shift, the public dollars that we are already utilizing in public benefits at the end when people are already in poverty. What can that transition mean if we shift those current dollars to the beginning to prevent poverty through a guaranteed jobs? We believe through this pilot we can demonstrate that this is a much better investment than waiting until afterwards. That's what I am willing to go forth. If it happens in Ward 7, why? But if it happens in someone else's neighborhood, great. You see what I'm saying? Because again, we will have documented evidence that this is what we need to do. And at the least, if we can work with the state government and federal government to at least get a waiver. If don't nobody else want to do it, this is what Cleveland wants to do, right? I'm willing, I'm feeling. That's what I feel like we need to do, because state policy has created many of the conditions that our communities are dealing with, and I believe our policies can absolutely change the conditions of our communities, and I feel like this is a start.
Well, once again, like I said, I appreciate it. I don't think it's very rare to have a council person that asks for a piece of legislation that they didn't know, at least they wouldn't get a piece of it. So I just commend you for that, because that shows that you're willing to put policy in place and not focus on just my ward like a lot of people do a lot. But here's what I will say. The one concern I do have, and I want to make sure I understand this, is that you're looking at trying to leverage this to leverage about $15 million.
Yes, sir.
So let's say the corporate community and others don't come bearing gifts, and this is the only money on the table.
Yeah.
How are we going to sustain this, or is this meant to be sustainable? And what if nobody else comes to the table to rescue us, and the city government dollars, as Mr. McShepherd just said, are the only dollars out there trying to implement this?
Yeah, Council President, we're very confident in our ability to raise the additional, and just so we have the sticker price right, it's $21 million, $15 million goes directly into the hands of Cleveland residents, $6 million in administrative overhead. While that number may seem high, it's because the intensive level of technical assistance and case management that we have wrap around, where that's social workers, peer-to-peer supports, unrestricted transition dollars, re-credentialing dollars, and things like that for 100 individuals and their families. So while they may seem like a high number in administrative overhead, it's a $21 million sticker price. And that's the benefit of having us be in partnership with the United Way, is because we have a demonstrated organization with 100 years of legacy, with the ability to go out and use their platform and be in partnership to raise those additional dollars. Also, Cleveland Philanthropy has gotten us to this point, and they understand the total cost of this initiative and are willing to help us to get to the finish line to make this pilot a success and make Cleveland a leader in what it means to eliminate poverty. Additionally, we have 14 members on our advisory committee that are helping us to go out and move the needle to bring the national supporters in to make this a reality. We've already started those conversations. We have many people very, very excited about this, and we're constantly pushing away folks to take this out of Cleveland. But we're extremely confident between our partnership with the United Way, our advisory committee, and the conversations that we've already seeded, that we'll hit our target goal by 2026.
And to the president, just a reminder, and rest of council, this right now what the request is really for a research and development phase, and so it'll be a 2-year period in which we have to really go after those national funders that Devin just spoke to raise the rest of the funding. Right now, we want to make sure that we understand get the concept right so that the pilot will eventually be successful.
Thank you so much. Councilman Mike Polinsky and then Councilman Anthony Hairston.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and my honorable colleagues, and to the folks, the gentlemen are here at the table, and I appreciate the time that Stephanie spent with me trying to explain this to me. Here's my questions. ARPA funds, we've talked about it around this table ad nauseum. They've got to be sustainable. So, 3 years, hasta la vista, baby, the money ain't going to be there. You understand that, correct? Mm-hmm. Okay. Number two, is Third Space Action Lab, Step Forward, Center for Community Solutions, New School, Compass Policy Strategies, RPM, United Way, New School, Neighborhood Progress, United Way, how much money are you guys putting in?
To the councilman through the chair, right now, the resources, we've written grants on behalf of UB, and currently all the administrative expertise that we're providing. So we're providing space, resources, copiers, marketing support, all those different resources, connections to our employer base. Right now, the majority of it is in kind, but we do have some ask out for funding.
So
right
none of the partners are putting any cash in the pot. Is that what I'm hearing? Putting any cash in this deal?
So to the councilman through the chair, United Way is an organization that fundraises every dollar that we put out into the community. So the way that we will put funding in is by raising funds.
Okay. But, I've been around here a long time, and I've heard a lot of proposals at this table. My own son gets up at 7 o'clock every morning, faithfully, goes out the door, doesn't come back till 6:30 at night, makes $20 an hour. The majority of city employees don't make 50 grand. Do you realize that? The majority of Cleveland employees don't make $50,000, okay, working for the city of Cleveland. So having grown up, I was born in Glenville, raised in Collinwood. I understand poverty better than anybody. I lived it, I experienced it, and I see it every day. And this is my rub here. This is like that old saying, you can give somebody a fish, but if you teach them how to fish, they have fish for a long time. We're not teaching anybody how to fish here. We're gonna give somebody a $50,000 a year salary. I don't know who the 100 people are. I don't know who the businesses are that are going to benefit. I don't know what neighbors. We heard in corridors now. But I will tell you without any fear of contradiction, I'll tell you what the problem is in this city. We don't educate our kids. Our kids, they write our kids off in this city. I want to say it again for everybody watching here. They write our kids off in this city. Look at this school system. They stripped vocational technical training programs from all of our schools on the east side. Our kids don't have the ability to provide for themselves once they leave college. I hear that from Ted Ginn. I'm on the board again, Academy. Been on the board since day one. Ted said, all my kids aren't going to play football. They need skills. We don't give them skills. We don't give them opportunity. They write black kids off. They write poor kids off in this city. And now we're going to give somebody 50 grand, 100 of them who are going to benefit. I don't know who the chosen few are going to be, but we're not getting to the root cause here. The root cause, we're not educating our kids. We're not providing opportunity. We just talked before about the wonderful program about housing. We reward developers who make all kind of frickin' money, but we can't build single-family houses here. We can't build affordable houses, but we reward developers. If we don't get back to the basics here, this city is screwed up. I mean, we are screwed up in Cleveland. We got sports teams owner with their hands out like the guy standing on Payne Avenue before a game up there, like beggars up there. Do they give back? No, they don't give back. They don't provide any. They don't adopt schools. They don't do crap. I got to watch my language here. I mean, really. I mean, I'd like to give everybody 50 grand in this city that's working, but how are we going to do it? We can't do it. And so if we don't educate our folks, if we don't provide opportunities, we could come up with all the specialized programs. We're never going to deal with the massive poverty and despair we have in this city. And I got to believe all you gentlemen sitting here are all educated. I mean, can't you see what the rest of us see? Can't you see what the rest of us see? Go in these schools. They don't have anything for these kids in these buildings. They don't even have music programs anymore. They stripped everything out of these schools. We beg for this, we beg for that, and we can't get it. And then we look at our suburban counterparts and the programs they have in their schools. And we don't have them in Cleveland. So, you know what, to me, this is like just a life preserver. It's a 3-year life preserver. And I'm hoping, I'm sitting here thinking, can this work? Can this take off? But up to this point, the people with money in this city, especially 3 team owners, I don't see them funding squat. Brown's commitment to Muni football last week, we learned, was $30,000. Big whoop. That's nice of them. $30,000 to the Muni football program. Mr. Chairman, the older I get, the more peed off I'm getting around here. I've seen too much in my time. I've heard it all. The concept of this might be great, and I applaud my colleague because of her concern. We've talked. But my God Almighty, I mean, if we don't get to the root cause of here, we don't have kids that are educated. We don't have kids that can go into the workforce. I hear it all the time from businesses. They can't go into the workforce. So now we're going to give 100 of them, whoever we could define, we're going to meet 50 grand with the hope that somehow that's going to lift our city or begin to lift our city out of poverty. I don't see it. I don't see it happening. And I don't see anybody kicking their own money in this. I don't see anybody stepping up to the plate saying, man, yeah, we're going to throw in $500,000, we're going to throw in $1 million, we're going to throw in this and that. I don't see anybody else doing that at this point. And so, Mr. Chairman, and again, I understand my colleague, how passionate she feels about a lot of things, and I appreciate it. And all my other colleagues. But my doggone it, and we don't get back to basics. We don't approach and attack the root cause. I've said at this table, we got a pool at Collinwood High School sitting empty for 6+ years because they don't believe black kids can swim or want to swim. I mean, that's the kind of insulting crap that we have in this city. That's the kind of crap, and you guys need to understand that. That's what's going on in this city. And I don't think people understand it and get it. I get it because I'm in those damn streets every day, and I'm not happy about it. I've seen too much in my time, too many people who are failing, and at the end result, what do we see them in the streets carrying guns? No, we got to do something better here. Our kids deserve better, and they write these kids off. And Mr. Chairman, I'm not being quiet. My political correctness is gone. My diplomacy is gone. This is a life preserver. A 3-year life preserver at best, and we have to recognize that. And if that's what we want to do, then let's do it. Then let's do it with the hope, because again, we're gambling. We're taking a gamble here. Maybe I'm prepared to take a gamble because I don't see anybody else doing anything around here from a standpoint of the powers that be in this town. Write our kids off, write our neighborhoods off. So that's what I have to say, Mr. Chairman. I'm done.
Thank you, Councilman. Councilman Anthony Harrison, Conwell Bishop.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I won't take too much time up. Just a few questions. So, again, how long is this pilot through the chair?
Through the chair to Councilman Harrison, it's 3 years.
So the pilot is going to be 3 years, it's going to take you 3 years to get it going?
Through the chair to Councilman Harrison, we have a 2-year runway with a set to launch a pilot in 2026.
All right, so 26, you'll launch. And from 2026, that's when the 3-year timeline comes in?
Yes, sir. Yes.
Okay. How are we going to choose the 100 people through the chair?
Yeah, through the chair to Councilman Harrison, it's in partnership with the research and evaluation team, additional with using existing infrastructure and community development and some partners that we have to go in and find places where we already have existing businesses that might be interested through our focus groups but again, that Doug and Mr. McShepard helped us with, where we had small businesses that came in and provided their direct feedback. So we have some natural places that we can go in to talk with small businesses that are interested in the work. And again, it's about building the conditional capacity that duplicates additional people to go out and have these individual conversations in community and in place to find the right mix of people and small businesses in a concentrated corridor to run the pilot.
Sure. So through the chair to Mr. Cotton, I really didn't hear an answer about how we're going to choose 100 people. You said it through existing community development infrastructure. But many times where you have a thriving corridor, right, small businesses, you typically have the communities that surround it that doesn't have the greatest need, right? Mm-hmm. But when you have corridors that are not thriving, that's where you have the need of people who live around it. Yep. So I'm not sure how to, because you want to go in an area where you have a corridor, mm-hmm. but you're also going to work with go after the people who are around those corridors. I mean, I guess if we're trying to support those who are in need, mm-hmm. then it'll be the opposite, right? I mean, you would want to go to the neighborhoods that need the support and then send them to the corridors that are thriving. I mean, I guess I'm trying to understand it. It can't be the thriving corridors and the communities around it, because you typically, not every case, yes. but typically the people who live around those thriving corridors are doing okay, right? Not saying they don't need help, but they're doing okay. Where you have corridors, and I can name you many on the east side, where the corridors are not thriving and the people are struggling mm-hmm. in those surrounding neighborhoods, right? I mean, it's a correlation. We see it all over the world, right? Where poverty exists. So help me understand the reasoning behind going to the thriving corridor and supporting the neighborhoods that are centered around the corridor.
Yeah.
That makes sense to me.
Yeah, through the chair to Councilman Harrison, it's not necessarily a thriving corridor. It's a corridor with enough businesses that we can go in and provide support and provide enough employment for 100 individuals. Again, that's with us providing the technical assistance to be able to expand their current capacity, to help them stretch beyond what they currently think they can do. Hey, they have 3 people in their bakery, and now with our technical assistance and expertise in HR, accounting, finance, and things like that, they can expand to having 6 people, and now we've just changed the trajectory of that corridor. Our goal, again, is looking at our most vulnerable neighborhoods that need this investment with people that need this investment. And then also, I think the point that's not lost is that even in our most vibrant corridors, and to a point that you made, is that the median income in our community is $25,000 is Cleveland as a whole. So it's hard for us to find a corridor that would be like, oh, this is a place that we couldn't use, because the reality is that even in our most affluent neighborhoods, the reality of the situation is that you're 1 block away from folks that are currently living in poverty. So we have we'll be bringing in the expertise and the technical assistance that will help our small businesses to expand past what we're currently seeing in communities like the Lee Road corridor, 105, Kinsman Road, St. Clair, things like that. We're very intentional about thinking about corridors that need this shot in the arm, but also understanding that we have the technical assistance and expertise to help those small businesses in those communities to expand beyond where they're currently at. And that's what that 2-year runway is preparing them to be a part of the pilot.
Sure. And through the chair, Mr. Cotton, I hear you. I'm thinking about the communities that are in desperate need, are not the communities that have many small businesses lined up and down the street. Now, granted, again, yes, there are some neighborhoods that are in need, that has a number of small businesses that line the streets, from the retail front. But that's you can count that on maybe one hand across the city of Cleveland, right? But there are real sectors of this community that are in desperate need, are real poverty, right? Mm-hmm. But doesn't have the many businesses, take out the word thriving, mm-hmm. that doesn't have many businesses that lines their streets, right? Mm-hmm. And some of the neighborhoods that need it the most, they may have a manufacturer. It may not be a small storefront or retail operation.
Yeah.
It may be a large manufacturer. It may be a mid-sized manufacturer, right? And through the chair to Mr. Cotton and your team, are we just looking for retail? Are we looking at these manufacturers? Are we looking at all types of businesses? You know, what type of businesses are we looking to participate in this?
Yeah, through the chair to Councilman Harrison, yes, we're examining all businesses. Through our human-centered design process, we had 20 businesses that range the spectrum of, SCNA, home health aid, all the way up to light manufacturing. So we understand that in the mosaic of Cleveland, there's a number of businesses that are in community, in place. We have an emphasis, and we are going to look at businesses that take place in place, but we also know for the long-term goals of where we're trying to be, we know that people are going to need a number of options to hit our employment goals that we're trying to reach. So it's going to have to be light manufacturing. It's going to have to be the direct care industry. It's going to have to be the food service industry. It's going to have to be, other industries, so that we can have a comprehensive suite of jobs that we're looking at, that we can provide 100 employment for individuals. It's going to be a wide mix.
Right, and again, I thank you for that answer, because, what we don't want to do, we obviously want people to be placed in jobs that are not dead end, right? That they have a level of attrition that they can, they can make within that company, right?
Yeah.
And I guess when I just hear this small business corridor, right? My mind just keeps going back to a Boost Mobile store or a fast food place on the corridor or something else, right? You may have a banking retail storefront or something like that, but we know what most of the retail corridor storefronts look like, right? It's a daycare and other things are in the city of Cleveland. And not say that any of those businesses, aren't needed, and they do good things for our neighborhoods. Absolutely not. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is that I would think that we want to put people in these places where, they can really excel to higher levels, in these jobs, right? They can really be, showcase their skills and talents and be leaders in these companies, and not just be another employee, a part of the storefront. So, I would ask through the chair that we have some sort of reporting or quarterly reporting as you go through this process, right, to keep us informed where you are, who you're talking to, just kind of where you are with funders, where you are with businesses, so that we kind of, this body knows kind of where you are in that process.
Yes.
Mr. Chair, I would ask that we add that to the piece, make an amendment to add that into the piece. And moving on, the funders, you mentioned that you're confident that you're going to be able to raise the dollars needed to support the pilot. Can you share with us where you are in your conversation with some of your funders? Who said yes, who said no, who said maybe I'll talk to you later? Absolutely not. I'm sure, they're, because of your conversation, you have some level of response that you received from some of your potential sources.
Yeah, through the chair to Councilman Harrison, I want to go back to your last point. We recognize the goal in the sunsetting of the pilot and the trajectory or career pathway way it's often talked about. One of the first things that Councilwoman House-Jones said to me was that, we can't elevate folks up to $50,000 and drop them back down to zero for the sake of research. And so built into the pilot is a re-credentialing stipend in which we're bringing $5,000 to help folks and hopefully raising some matching funds through some of our community education partners so that folks can re-credential. We have too many stories where it's like, hey, I'm an STNA because my cousin got me a job because she's a nurse, and now I'm on this cycle of being an STNA in these poverty wage jobs, and yada, yada, yada. Even though we're supplementing that STNA job to get it up to $50,000 and to have the 3-year reprieve, we know that those folks need to find a way to re-credential, and we have that built into the pilot in the intense wraparound support to ensure that people have the possibility and the pathway to thrive and self-select their future. So at that point, I just want to reiterate that that point is not lost on us, that this pilot will end at some point in time, and that folks need to have a pathway to thrive afterwards. Additionally, we know that businesses make more when their employees do when their employees are stabilized, and so we have the possibility for small business to be able to sustain these individuals, bring individuals that have no work experience to 3 years demonstrated work experience. They've built their resume, they've increased their social capital, technical skills, hard skills, soft skills, and now they're on a pathway to have the agency and social capital needed to begin navigating their next opportunity. To the point about fund development, we've had very good conversations, again, with Cleveland Philanthropy. The Gun Foundation has been a great partner. Cleveland Foundation have been a great partner, and Deaconess Foundations have been a great partners. And they all understand that they're part of their charge and their excitement is to help us getting to the next race. They've all come in and provided support in the initial round through our design phase, and we're all finishing up a capital round to provide what we hope to be at the end of this round of investment to be a 1-to-1 match for Cleveland for these dollars, for these ARPA dollars. So at the end, your investment will be insulated by the same amount of investment from Cleveland Philanthropy. From a national side, we have in our advisory committee Dr. Derek Hamilton and Sarah Truhoff, both from the New School, that are connecting us to those national partners that are excited and waiting a proposal for us to come with them to talk with folks like the Economic Security Project and different folks like that are interested in pushing the agenda to the next level.
Sure, through the chair. So, Mr. Cotton, what did the Cleveland Philanthropy say? Are they supportive? Do they
Yes.
want to get back?
Yes.
So they are supportive.
Yes, sir.
And they are willing to make an investment, participate.
Yes.
Your other local funders here, any other corporation businesses you've spoken to who are saying yes, that we are supportive.
Yeah, so that's the partnership with the United Way that we'll go through and be able to use their context to begin. As a one individual starting UBE and doing this work for 18 months by myself, haven't had those natural touch points with the private sector. But again, using the partnership with the United Way, we look forward to having those conversations moving forward.
So you rely on the United Way and Brother Ken to make those connections to get the corporate community on board.
Through the chair to the councilman, this is the first step. So we want to make sure we bring Devin on. We have the concept. There are additional, like Devin mentioned, local foundations that are willing to support, but we want to broaden that and get support as well from the local business community. More support.
Sure. No, in closing, Mr. Chair, I appreciate the presentation and discussion around UBE. Oftentimes we are the first in on projects, right? Not often, we're the first in, and as Councilman Polenzek said, we have many, issues around the city of Cleveland, right? And one of the issues with our young people, even in particular high schoolers, where, they just are not receiving the level of education that they deserve, right? Or they need the support that they need. In some cases, they are, right? But they need greater help than what they are receiving today. And I believe also, as Councilman Polenzek and others have stated, that unless we address that issue, we're going to continue to see the issues that we see today. Yeah. That this may be a help for a few, right? We can help a few, and the hope is that this just catches fire, and we can be able to help hundreds and thousands of people, right, through this initiative. However, if we cannot lay a better foundation, and that's starting with support for the households, right, before they get to this point where they can then go get a job and they're out of high school, or provided them a more stable education, then the number of folks who we are going to support, or we will need to support, is going to grow. This is going to continue to grow because the foundation is not there that they need as relates to their household currently, and education. This will only continue to grow. The subsidies will only continue, right? This is a starting point for some who are at that point in their life, but we have many more, hundreds coming behind these individuals who need support, who need help, and so we really need to take a step back. Or not really take a step back, but in parallel, have conversations and really put forth meaningful ways that can better support our families and educate our young people across the city of Cleveland. Because that, to me, that is the foundation of all of this, right? You know, if those two things aren't happening, then this will only, the need will only grow. It'll get greater and greater as we move along, of folks who we're going to have to try to subsidize and get them employment and get them into a job, you know, and help them out, right? But as Councilman Pelizik indicated, if we put back our vocational services in our schools, right, you know, put more money into supporting these families, you know, before they young people hit high school or in their elementary days or their middle school days, you know, I think we can see greater results. And I think there'll be less need to have to create pilots like these, that we have created the foundation where these individuals and their families, you know, are really at a good place that they can go out and secure, you know, meaningful employment, right? They can compete, they can excel in the world in the way that we know, in the way that we want them to. So I support this. I know Councilwoman House has been pushing this along. I know Councilman Starr also set out on this journey a couple of years ago, but you know, we didn't have ARPA at that time, you know, for this to happen, and now we have ARPA. So, you know, I would really, and particularly in the neighborhood that he represents, right? You know, there is we all have the need in all of our neighborhoods, but Ward 5 in particular, and if he was here, he would tell you is a ward that is desperately in need of this type of support, right? And particularly when you have a lot of people who are in those subsidized homes, CMHA, the benefits cliff, right? You get a job, you're down, right? You make just a little bit above where you are or where you should be, then they cut you off, right? But if a lot of those individuals who are in their current situation had access to this type of support and a meaningful pay, a meaningful job, that I think that we can really begin to see a change or a shift in communities like Ward 5 and other parts of the city of Cleveland. So just my 2 cents. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Appreciate that.
Thank you. I have Councilman Kevin Conwell, Councilman Kevin Bishop.
People. Let me make sure this mic is on. We're looking at 100 people. Is that correct, through the chair?
Through the chair to Councilman Conwell, yes.
And how much does it cost per person that we, let's say, for example, we have them working somewhere, and let's say they make $20,000, and you want them to make $50,000, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you said after 3 years that you got systems in place where they can stay at 50,000. Is that correct?
Through the chair to the councilman, to answer your first question, each individual will be receiving a $150,000 total subsidy by way of their salary, with additional wraparound supports that include $5,000 in transition money, $5,000 in an educational recredentialing stipend, additional in conjunction with the intense case management support.
And so, let's say this person is working at McDonald's.
We would, through the chair to the Councilman Conwell, we would be looking at more opportunities that are less corporate and more directly in place. Jobs that happen in community, jobs that happen in place, but may not be necessarily tied to a national franchise.
Right. You know, if they were working for, and I'm just using McDonald's as an example.
Mm-hmm.
I might not have to spend that whole $150,000 if I train that individual as they go. All right? And then let's say if they work for a place, and I'm not saying McDonald's, but I'm just saying for an example.
Mm-hmm.
I could train them to get their CDL to make close to $100,000. Or I could train them in real estate so they can work in real estate or in marketing, or they can get their associate degrees so that I can have job retention. So they might not need 3 years, they might only need a year, and then I can use that money for someone else. See, you got to think about how do I grow through the chair, the 100 people, so that I can have 300, 200, or 300 people, and I can do job placement elsewhere, and I can grow them. Because after 3 years, it scares me. The 3-year part scares me. How can you guarantee that they're working for a mom and pop business, that after 3 years, they're still going to be making $50,000 a year with meaningful jobs, with meaningful benefits? And here's the other thing, morale. If I have someone working next to me, they're making $50,000, something was given to them to make $50,000, and I'm only making $25,000, how you think the morale would feel in that workplace? Through the chair to Devin Cotton.
Yeah, through the chair to Councilman Conwell, that's a great point and something that we think deeply about. That's why we're going to bring the HR and human resources experts in place in tow to walk through that scenario with a business. Are we if you're a mom and pop shop and you have 5 people, are we elevating all 5 because they fit our research question, or are you only elevating 3? And then what does that look like inside your business, and how can we walk with you to provide the technical assistance to manage that situation? We've had conversations in depthly with hospital systems about what does that look like, how do we manage that, how do we navigate that? And it's a case-by-case process. I mean, that's why we're having this 2-year runway, because these are deep conversations that we're having with small businesses, or business in general. We'll change the word to business in general, to understand what are the ramifications of this impact on your business are, and how can we provide you with the expertise and the supports needed to ensure that this does no harm to your business, because there's no benefit to having an upset half of your work staff while you're trying to do the work as well.
Yeah, because you have to look at the law of unintended consequences.
Yes.
And you have to look at the behavior in the work market. And as I said earlier, now what I would do with this money I'm trying to get from council, I would do like Councilmember Anthony Harrison and Councilmember Mike Polensik. I would go into schools, build up my workforce. The reason why a lot of businesses do not come to the city of Cleveland, because you don't have the skill set to do certain jobs. And I would take the money to cultivate workers so that they could be working. I could get, you know what I can get? I can get 3 job developers, or maybe less, maybe a little bit more. Get them to put some of my people, when we train them, and to maybe work for Frito-Lay, maybe work for Coca-Cola, maybe work for Cleveland Clinic, find out what they need for their job skills, and I would place them in these places. More than 100 people, and my average wage probably maybe around $40,000, $50,000 with meaningful benefits, and my job retention probably would be better. I'm listening to this really because of Councilwoman Stephanie House. This piece here, I could leave council, and if you give me this money, I could do better than this.
Through the chair to Councilman Conwell, I appreciate the sentiment, and that the 3 of you have all shared that, the emphasis on education. Again, through the re-credentialing stipend, we've baked some of that in. But poor educational attainment and a non-ready-made workforce that we're currently seeing here in Cleveland is a symptom of poverty. And we could put an emphasis on dollars that to do job readiness and job placement. But that's a one-person solution. What we're looking at is examining a situation where we're changing the climate, the impact that a school can have at a job readiness program, going back to someone's home and going back to the realities of their lives. Our CMSD and our schools are working extremely hard, but it's the fact that so many of our children are bringing poverty into the school and bringing poverty into the educational process that they're struggling. And again, it's not lost on me, having done Job Training Works and worked with OJT, and I'm missing the name of that work, the company that we worked with doing job placement and things like that. But part of the evolution in my own thought was just, again, the symptoms of poverty is hampering the reality around the educational attainment. Poor educational attainment is a byproduct and a symptom of poverty.
No, that's because they're doing it wrong. You know what I would do? And you got United Way sitting right there. I would bring in other key stakeholders who could work out, and we would do individual service plans through the chair to you, Cotton, and we would, and you work with the schools with different wraparound services. I understand the abject poverty that's in the schools. I understand that some of the kids, when they go home, their houses are too hot for the summer, too cold for the winter. I mean, I understand all these kind of things, but you bring in other services. We have other services that we could work with to stabilize people through the United Way, through Catholic Charities, through towards employment. You stabilize them there. You have some social workers, and then we cultivate our workforce. And then when that happens, you're able to even bring in other businesses to the city of Cleveland because you have a job readiness workforce. But by me taking for 3 years, putting someone to work there, what's the probability or the odds that they're not going to be there and your job retention would not be there?
Through the chair to the council.
And let me say this too, and I'm thinking about it. You have some of the mom and pop businesses, they don't have benefits. So let's say we make a worker at $50,000 with wages. Then you have to pay for benefits that cost a lot also, because you need meaningful jobs with meaningful benefits there. And it's not just money. And then sometimes if they make $50,000 a year, then the mother or the father cannot get ADC medical or whatever the case may be. And then here's the other piece dealing with abject poverty. You look at this costing a lot of money. Women or families, not health care, child care. So you got child care, health care, and the other kind of things to look at. And I yield to you, sir.
Through the chair to the councilman, I'll address the last point first. One, benefits is baked into this, the whole concept of universal basic employment. The thought is whatever salaries are being paid currently to an employee would then help improve job quality, which could include benefits. It could include a child care subsidy or for the light to address that. Transportation challenges could be addressed through that. To the earlier point you made about just kind of investing in various workforce initiatives, we've been doing that as a community for a long time, and unfortunately, we still are in the top 2 of poverty in this country. So while our partners that are funded through United Way and other organizations, and we're going to continue to do that because we do need to help individuals in crisis at the time of crisis. This really is a look at trying to change the system. This is really helping people think about jobs and job quality, and as Councilwoman House said before, really thinking about how do we repurpose already used public dollars on the front end so that we don't have to use them on the back end to address poverty. So if we can give people the money that they need in order to function, to buy their groceries, to get to work, to educate their kids, make sure they have those supplemental opportunities to educate their kids, that's how we're going to get out of poverty. It's by investing in the front end and really changing the system. We'll continue to fund, and as well as many of our other local partners, the current workforce system, because we know there are some people who just need a new credential or a new skill, and we'll continue to support that because we know that is necessary. But this is really thinking of a whole different level and changing how we use public dollars to encourage work.
Yeah, we need the corporate dollars. I mean, that would help. It would be nice if the corporate people start hiring more people and start hiring mainly a lot of African Americans. We had to, with people with black and brown, write laws and legislation just to put our people to work. We had to write laws to make sure that we get the same average wages. And right now, women are not even making, they're making 70% compared to a white male 100%. So it's laws and policy that we had the right to do that. But I don't think that, and I understand, but here's back to even where Mike Polinsky is at. We can take this money, you have schools like Glenville and Collinwood that the children are walking the streets out in Glenville committing crimes, Collinwood, Councilmember Mike Pulisic, Councilmember Anthony Harrison know, because we're not taking the money to cultivate young people to believe in the power of work, to put them to work. And we're talking about 100 people here, but how do we make it that it's more than 100 people? You see what I'm saying? You give me 100 people, how can I have 100 people and I take them in there and I teach them job training, job readiness to make them move over to another job spot or how to get promoted? You haven't even touched that, or the job spot could be I train them to become CDL workers, purchasing and procurement and finance, whatever the case may be, because there's other systems in the workplace that they could grow, or if they work for the Marriott, PBX operators, whatever the case may be. And you know, and Randy, you know this, work is therapeutic. Work is therapeutic, work will keep crime down, the whole 9 yards, but I don't want to just see 100 people. I want to see how do you take 100 people to make it grow? To make it grow from 100 people, and then that way we get a return on our investment. And you mentioned to the chair, to Devin Cotton, I don't want to place someone and they don't have benefits. Once we start putting benefits in there, and you start putting childcare is a fortune, man. Once you start putting childcare in there, that 50,000 is going to grow even more so. Meaningful jobs with meaningful benefits is where I'm at. And I'm gonna tell you this. When you mentioned about job development, Randy knows. I've been doing job development since the 90s, putting people to work. I probably have done at least 70 job fairs. This man knows, and I walk the streets, put fathers to work so they can take care of their kids. I can read a job proposal and what's going on with it. You got some holes in there. I'll sit back and I'll work with you in it. And Randall McShepard, no. And were you in on implementing through the chair to Randall McShepard this program?
Councilman, this just want to let you know I did let you go a few minutes over your time.
But-
So after
but-
Mr. McShepard does his remarks, then if you want to go back on, I would have to put you on after the.
They put me back on again.
At the end,
This is
okay.
about money. This
All
is
right.
about my expertise, Mr. President. And this is where my role is at, and this is why you put me at this table.
I understand, Councilman. I just want to make sure that I stick strictly to the rules that we all agreed to, because once I start getting away from that, then everybody would just freestyle it. So I just want to make sure that I keep everybody on their time limit. Mr. McShepard.
To Council President, to my dear friend, Councilman Conwell,
Long-time friend.
yes. I would have to go back to the comment that Ken made that United Way, since inception, has given over $2 billion away for health and human services in Cleveland.
Oh, wow.
It's not working. It's not working at the impact that we all needed to work at. And so think about that. Since inception, the Cleveland Foundation has given over $2 billion. There's no shortage of effort to provide workforce development programs and initiatives, and none of that will change. The Workforce Investment Board will still be going strong as a result of this, doing what they do, helping people to get placed. We're trying to supplement or augment that with this pilot to show what could happen when you bring people up to that level. For me, one thing that stands out, Councilman, is working role models. That's something that I don't see from the city that I grew up in as a small child, where everybody on my street worked full time.
They work.
You go up and down streets now, you don't see people working.
They don't work.
To start with this 100, at least you're getting people exposed to the workplace. Their families can see it, their neighbors can see it. Businesses perhaps will start to see much more retention and effort on the part of their employees, and maybe they then would be more open to hiring more people from the community, because they see, wow, these people are committed if given the right opportunity.
You know what I'm talking about, like TJT?
Yeah.
Or the job tax credits that they
That's
had
exactly right.
in the 90s.
Right, and the last thing I'll say, for the sake of time, is at our farm. One of my best memories at the Riddall farm was a group of third graders coming through and taking a tour and going back to school, and when the teacher asked the question, what was your favorite part of the field trip, their response was, all the bosses look like me. So people need to see family members, neighbors, people that maybe they counted out, actually getting paid that kind of money and actually seeing how it impacts. Maybe they finally got a car. I think 1 out of every 4 Clevelanders own a vehicle. So it's a big deal for some people just to be able to afford a car. Some people may get their houses repaired, or the leaking roof, they finally are in a position to be able to repair their roof. Maybe they're able to take in another family member because they're making a little bit more money. I mean, these are the real issues that people deal with on a daily basis. Now we're not saying this is the panacea that's going to solve all problems, but we believe that it can start a movement. It can generate momentum that maybe creates attention from other, larger funders, the federal government, other foundations, what have you, just to show we still will do all those other things, but here's a new innovative model. And the difference is, I know there's been UBEs out there that just give people money as a public benefit. This one is all about, no, you have to work. So it's really teaching the importance of work and developing work habits and skills and just, showing up every day, which for many will be an education in and of itself, so.
We'll talk about it. I'll call you up.
Yeah, we'll talk.
We'll put you back on, Councilman, because I know you have some more to bring to this. Councilman Kevin Bishop.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, first I want to express my gratitude to all of the gentlemen here today. I truly have mad respect for each and every one of you trying to eradicate poverty. It's a tall task. It's something that you don't see folks trying to alleviate this every day. And I also want to give my propers to my colleague, Councilwoman Stephanie House, for thinking such outside of the box. Mr. Chairman, I have thought quite a bit about this piece of legislation and trying to find something that would convince me to want to be on board with this and support this. But I'm struggling to find, I got to be honest, I'm struggling to find a reason to support this piece of legislation. A lot of things were said by my colleagues that I don't want to go back and repeat the same thing over and over again. Councilman Polensek touched on quite a bit. Councilman Conwell touched on some things. Councilman Ashley Harrison touched on quite a few things that I thought also. One thing that stood out was when Councilman Polensek said, if you teach a man to fish, you can feed him for a lifetime. I have that written on my paper, but since he said that, I want to kind of relate to if you are cold in the winter and you need your house heated, well, you're not going to get heat. And I heard Earl Nightingale say this, you're not going to get heat until you add the wood to the fire. So you got to add the fuel before you get heat. And I think what we're doing here in this instance is we won't heat without adding fuel first. Mr. McShepard, you mentioned that, I just heard you say that the most important thing about this process is that you teach people to go to work. You teach people to go to work every day. You teach people the work culture. And I think that's probably one of the most important things that I've heard here is that teaching folks the culture of work, to going to work every day. And like you, Mr. McShepard, I grew up in a neighborhood, in a black neighborhood, where I saw all of the men going to work every day. And I struggled to find that in my neighborhood today. Is just the culture of kids today and seeing men go to work every single day. So if I can have one positive thing, that I think that would be it, just to see folks going to work. I am uncomfortable with the city putting up the money first before we have commitments from other funders. I think the $600,000 is not a lot of money for us to kind of squawk over, but again, the city going first to put up the money when so much money is needed for this program to work. So I'm uncomfortable with that. But let me just touch on a few points that I want to get out before I relinquish. Are we worried about poaching of employees? Because like Councilman Polensek said, that a lot of our workers in the city of Cleveland don't make $50,000 a year. Are we worried about poaching from employers, from this program, from other employees to the chair through the committee?
Yeah, through the chair to Councilman Bishop, to answer your first point, again, members of Cleveland City, members of Cleveland Philanthropy, so the Gun Foundation, Deaconess Foundation, the Cleveland Foundation, Norwood Family Foundation, have all provided us support. It previously, through our design phase, are coming back in, and we're having those continued conversations to make the raise in this round, and additionally understand their level of support and commitment, needing us to get to the full $21 million raise. So while Cleveland City Council is first in on this particular round, this money is not the first money into UBE in general. Members of, again, Cleveland Philanthropy have supported this work to get us to this point. To your second question, we're less worried about job poaching because the need in Cleveland is so great. Again, we'll be anchored in a corridor. There are no shortage of individuals that will be that need jobs, and we will make sure that we bake into the pilot that we don't have some level of poaching that is stealing folks from very critical work that is currently being done. But also part of the work that we're doing is wanting to shift the job market. So it's again the duality of not wanting to disrupt other small businesses or the city or the work that the city needs to get done, but also wanting to raise the overall wages in job quality that is currently in the marketplace.
Okay. Through the chair, I think we've all seen examples of just money just will not buy your way out of, or buy your way out of poverty, because we've seen folks that, hit the lottery. We've seen professional athletes that go make a lot of money, and then at the end of when their money runs out, they are right back at square one. So I don't think this $50,000 salary will lift folks out of poverty, so to speak, in just 3 short years. So what I'm not hearing is the training and the skill development side of this piece. What we will require for these folks, these 100 individuals, what kind of, and I heard Councilman Conwell say, what kind of training and what kind of skill set we are trying to demand that they develop as a result of this program?
Yeah, through the chair to Councilman Bishop. Again, I want to reiterate the re-credentialing stipend, where we give folks the opportunity and the resources to go re-credential themselves and reimagine what they see as the next step in their life. Less of demanding hey, you're going to do one of these things, because our most vulnerable workers are kind of in that situation right now where it's like, hey, we're making major investments in healthcare, manufacturing, and IT. These are the jobs that will provide career pathways. But more so, once people have the breadth of going away from making $0, dealing with benefits cliff, from making $25,000, to now having just the space and breadth to say, okay, now what do I want to do? We are going to put the supports around them for them to reimagine whether they want to become a coder, a CDL driver, go into the arts or whatever they see fit. Again, our goal, and one of the first mandates that Councilwoman House-Jones had when we did this, and again from our advisory committee as well, is that we're not going to elevate folks up to $50,000 and drop them back down. But it's going to come from the standpoint of not demanding that they go into these particular spaces, but giving them the space and breadth out of poverty and the resources for them to self-identify and curate and be the because of and writing the next chapter of their own story.
Okay. And Mr. Chairman, one of my last points is that, like Anthony Harrison, I worry that the city of Cleveland, particularly the east side of the city of Cleveland, we may get a lot of folks, those 100 individuals that come from the city of Cleveland, but the businesses within the city of Cleveland, it concerns me that we will not have the number of businesses within the city of Cleveland, especially in neighborhoods that's disadvantaged, to be able to participate in this program and benefit from this program. Mr. Chairman, I yield.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Councilman Conwell, before I bring up Councilwoman House, did you have any follow-up?
Yeah, I do. Back to Brando Shepherd. I heard what he said. Let's say you have a worker making $50,000 a year. Benefits might be that they have to pay out, because the city of Cleveland benefits are not the same as working for another company. So if you make $30,000 a year in Cleveland, working for another company, you're really not making the $30,000 you would make if you were working for the city of Cleveland. To compare and contrast, their benefits might be $250 a week or $500 a month. Benefits is extremely expensive, not counting dental also, all right? And you mentioned new cars and or eyewear, eyeglasses, and those kind of things that I'm looking at. Healthcare, the Senate is even debating down in Washington, D.C., how much, after COVID, when COVID was here, it was smaller. But now, healthcare with 2, 3 children, it's a fortune. So you got the $50,000, you add that in, you're down to like $35,000 a year, not talking about transportation, whatever the case may be. Now, put that over here. The other piece, when you bring a worker in, you got other workers might not be making what they're making, and what gives you the incentive to say, I want to do upper mobility if the $50,000, whatever the case may be, is given to you, and what will happen to the culture? Not the taking it from other places, but you have someone that say, I'm making $35,000, and then you automatically put Councilmember Anthony Harrison up to $50,000 or $55,000. Other workers are going to sit back and say, well, you know what, I'm glad he got that. That's what they're going to say. But they're really not glad he got the $50,000 or $55,000. They're going to turn around in that culture, because you also have to think about the workforce culture. Well, let Anthony do it. Let Anthony do it. He got the 55. Let Anthony do it. You're going to get that. That definitely will happen, because workplace culture is real.
Through the chair to Councilman Conwell. So going to your first question, the $50,000, and just so we can point of clarity on the mechanism, UBE is covering the salaries. The businesses is required to redirect their current wages. So the $13, $14 an hour that they're currently paying, $15 an hour, they're redirecting that $30,000 to cover the benefits and improve job quality. So the individual's total compensation will probably look something closer to $65,000, $70,000. But again, UBE is covering that $50,000 piece.
What about the health care through the chair? What about
That's all included through the chair to the councilman. That's all included in the total benefits that, again, we're putting the skin in the game for the members of the employers to have that skin in the game. So the total compensation from a macro perspective will be greater than the $50,000. To your second point about the upper mobility and the type upper mobility incentive to keep the individual, and then the in-office culture, we'll touch the upper mobility, again, talking with the small business owners and business owners in general that we've talked to. This is a tight labor market. They are all looking for workers. And so being able to subsidize the employment of one individual and bring them in to work, they're going to keep that individual and try to work to keep that individual, move them up and do different things like that. Our businesses are struggling to find talent and find individuals that are stabilized, because we have this cyclical system right now. But I'm offering 15 doesn't work. I get them for 6 weeks and they leave because of benefit cliffs, or I can go find 17 somewhere else. You're constantly sourcing this problem. We see this, this problem pervasive in our direct care space that Doug can talk to very, very, very much so.
attrition.
And then to your final point about the workplace environment, and not having these be like, this is the $50,000 person. I'm not going to bag these things, or I'm not going to make these sandwiches because they make more money than me. Again, we know we don't want to upset the individual firm. And so, again, it's bringing the technical assistance and the wraparound supports and the subject matter expertise from HR, finance, and accounting standpoint in place to ensure that we don't upset the realities for these firms.
Have you started identifying companies already so that you wouldn't have to wait to do it, that you could start job placement as soon as you're ready?
Yes. So it's, to the chair, to the councilman, have we found companies that would be a part of the pilot, or have we found a company that would
Part of the
help us
pilot.
with the technical assistance?
Part of the pilot.
Again, through the chair to the councilman, we had 20 businesses come in and be a part of our design phase, and they all gave a resounding yes that they would love to be a part of the pilot. Again, the first piece comes in finding the right corridor that we can anchor this in, and that's in multiple conversations with a number of businesses that we believe will be willing and eager to receive this wage subsidy.
Yeah, I still think it would be better for the kids. Okay, your policy intention versus your policy objective. Let's say you start hitting your milestones in 2 years, all right? Or close to 2 years, looking at your pilot program so you can evaluate, right? Do you think you could start looking to place people in other jobs ahead of time? Because when you study, policy moves.
Yes, through the chair to Councilman Conwell, that's a question that we would need to figure out from the standpoint of impacting the efficacy of the research study. At the end of this, our goal is, as I stated, is to shift state and federal policy. So our goal is to have a white paper at the end of this so that we can, move this agenda forward. Figuring out if we could then reallocate the dollars to employ someone else would be, we're far too in the process to answer that question.
Rando, you've been a long-time friend of mine. You're extremely bright. And for me, outcome measures, I don't just look at a white paper. You want to take the pilot program and start moving it to make it grow. And while it's there, you have 100 workers, but how can we expand it to 150 or 200 workers? And that's efficiency. How can we get the most out of it?
To the chair, to the councilman, I fully agree. I think what I'm hearing you say, Councilman, is that we should keep our options open and think big about, spin-off opportunities, growth opportunities, building off this model that might allow us to reach other potential employees and wherever we can meet them. I think that's sage advice that we should, we can't just go into this just focused on, we're only going to be able to help 100 people. If we're creative, we might be able to help 200 people.
Right.
The 100 will get the $50,000 salary, but that doesn't mean that we couldn't, working with partners and the partners that are part of this advisory council, United Way, the Workforce Investment Board, I think there might be a way to, weave some of these efforts together so that we can reach a broader group of Clevelanders. So I think that's a fair challenge to us, and we should think that way.
Right. Because you have placed some people in, let's say you done some job placement, you placed someone, let's say, at the Marriott Hotel. They're doing a good job. You're able to place some other people into, let's say you put one job placement there, but out of it you got 10. I mean, it happened before.
Yes.
Meaningful jobs with meaningful benefits, the average wages. So if you stuck at that 100, that's not good. But we think about how to make it grow. And we create maybe another grid to show the outcome measures elsewhere. How did it benefit? Because I just don't want to see, I'm stuck with 100, but I know you could do more than 100, Devin Cotton. I mean, you're a great job developer. You could do more than that.
Yeah, through the chair to the councilman, we like Mr. McShepard said, we'll continue to examine how we can make this pilot grow, and ways that if we see folks after 18 months, are stabilized, re-credentialed, and moved on to a new opportunity, can we redirect that subsidy to another individual? So definitely take that advice and look at what we could do to re-examine that.
And you know what, Randall, while we're doing this, I know I'm giving you a lot of work to do, but I know your background. Knock down some of those barriers to employment also, because when you clean up their records and you make sure they have a better driver's license, don't just get an individual more money, but make sure the person have a better driver's record, make sure that we can knock down maybe some felonies, make sure you can take out some misdemeanors, barriers to employment. So if they want to leave there and go elsewhere, there are barriers to employment, because that's what stops people from getting meaningful jobs with meaningful benefits, is these barriers to employment, all those kind of barriers. Make sure they have, and a lot of people don't have a driver's license, and they out here driving, but when they fill their I-9 form out, it become a barrier to employment. They can get that themselves, and they're able to take care of their families.
Through the chair to the councilman, I referenced the Cranes article earlier today. I actually wrote an op-ed talking about barriers to work and driver's license being one of those. So there's some research that was done by the Cleveland Fed recently, Kyle Fee there, that really talks specifically about that one. But we talk about it at United Way in terms of social determinants of work. Many people are familiar with social determinants of health. It's not just what the doctor does in the office. Is most of your health is everything else outside of it.
Right.
We feel the same way about work, that it is it's not just the actual job itself. It's getting people there. They need child care. They need the flexibility to deal with everything else in their lives, et cetera. So I completely agree with you, Councilman.
Yeah, that's important. That's very, very important. That'll help us out instead of just seeing what we see here. And when I saw you there, Randall McShepard, I said, wait a minute. He can knock down barriers to, that's what I was saying to myself. He can knock down barriers to employment and help other people out so we can expand, Mr. President, more than 100. And what that would do, and I'll close, you're able to keep crime down in the community when people, and work is therapeutic, and people will get a new walk in their life just from work doing that. So it's other systems that we can do. And I yield.
Thank you. Councilwoman House, you want to close us out? House Jones.
House Jones.
Thank you. To the members of Finance Committee, again, as we are having this conversation, when we talk about our public policies, we're really trying to just embark on a journey to explore and having our state and federal partners think about how we are using current public investment and not waiting till after people in such desperate situations. What can it look like if we are investing in the front hand side through a jobs guarantee? Can we get better results than what we are currently getting now, which is waiting until people, when you look at our, many of our, when can you get housing assistance, food assistance, child care assistance, health care assistance, and the amount of money that we are spending in those things versus transitioning them to the beginning portion, right? Could we get a better result? That's the question. Could we get a better result and at least try, right? Because again, we are saying we are spending and investing a significant amount of resources to manage and sustain poverty, not transforming and getting out of poverty. And this is just, it's a question we are really trying to explore that very intimately using what we know and a lot of things that we don't know, right? When I was asking many of our just colleagues here about how much in public benefits are currently being spent in your ward, most of us can't even answer that question. How much is being spent in public benefits from food assistance, housing assistance, Medicaid currently right now in our wards? We don't know. But we think we can have an opportunity to really explore this and and begin to have a shift, and not just after the fact, whatever that number is, could it be transitioned on the in the forefront through a guaranteed job benefit, put people in a better position to be able to participate in this capitalist system that we have and have a level, just a relief of this chronic stress that happens, which poverty breeds in many of the societal ills that we are confronted with. So that is what is in front of us. Hopefully, we can lead the way and explore this conversation and really develop the necessary, I guess, over these 5 years, develop some real relationships with our county, state, and federal partners to not only think about it, but to actually explore the real policy solutions that we can create some systems change. So thank you for considering this.
Thank you. Councilman Bishop, you have another comment?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, mark me as a no vote.
Okay. Councilman Bishop will be marked as a no vote for ordinance number 343-24. Okay, so Councilman Polensek and Councilman Bishop are no votes. Therefore, let's move to ordinance number 343-2024 as amended. Out of the 7 committee members, let's just go ahead and do a roll call.
Chair?
Yes.
Earlier, we talked about the reporting.
Yes.
Can we make sure we add that amendment for the reporting?
Could you please proffer the amendment?
Mr. Chair, I'd like to make an amendment that we add that this body receives quarterly reporting on ordinance number 343-2024.
So I have a motion on the floor. Mr. Roberts, are you clear with the motion? Do we have a second?
I'll second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay, any discussion? No discussion. All in favor said aye. Aye, pass, ayes have it. Therefore, we'll move to the vote, and let's just go ahead and do the roll call. If we could, Inez, please call it.
Mr. President,
Yes.
what I want to do also with this amendment, give me average wage that you mentioned 50,000, as well as benefits, and you said 100 people, job retention.
Is that a request for the policy staff to get that information for you?
Yes, yes, yes.
Okay, so policy team, do you have Councilman Conwell's follow-up that we need to get? Can you make sure that, Councilman Conwell, could you tell?
Average wage, benefits, and retention. You know, you say you got 100, and I'm not saying you're not, but the retention will let me know.
Okay.
And the average wage will let me know also. Put it in the grid.
All right. Okay, let's do the roll call if you could. Yes.
Yes.
No. Yes.
No.
Thank you. Thank you. Ordinance number 343-2024 stands approved. And please remember, if you could, Inez, to make sure that you record Polensek and Bishop. If you can make sure that the clerk is aware that they are both need to be registered as a no this evening. Thank you. Thank you, guys, and we will be working and looking forward to seeing more about this.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you. Public health, come on up. Public health.
Right. Jess.
I think we're good. I think we're good.
Thank you, I promise.
I mean, we'll double check just in case if there's anybody no, but I think it's right. Yeah.
Yep.
All right, this one is ordinance number 400-2024 by council members Conwell and Griffin by departmental request and emergency ordinance authorizing the Director of Public Health to apply for and accept a grant from the Ohio Department of Health for Title X program, authorizing the Director to charge and accept fees, entering into one or more agreements to receive payments from Medicare, Medicaid, HMO, and other third-party insurers, and authorizing contracts with various entities, requirement contracts, professional services, and advertising contracts necessary to implement the grant. Please proceed, Director.
Thank you, Council President and Committee. This is our biannual allotment from Ohio Department of Health to continue our reproductive health clinical services at the McCafferty, J. Glenn Smith, and now our mobile units as well.
Thank you. Councilman Conwell has stepped out, but I do know that this was heard in Health Committee, outside of Health Committee. Do we have any other questions regarding ordinance number 400? Councilman Mike Polensek.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, honorable colleagues, to the director. Do you happen to know, is there a travel guide as it pertains to the mobile units, where they go to and how you request a mobile unit?
The mobile unit, Yeah, through the chair, I don't remember the number off the top of my head, but you can give me a message. We're working on deploy that. We've had a few mechanical issues with the units that we're working out, and so it's kind of been a soft launch, but there will be more information forthcoming.
So how many mobile units do you have?
2.
2. So they're operational now, or they're not operational?
Through the chair, they're somewhat operational, but one is at the shop.
Okay. So how old are these vehicles?
Through the chair, they were ordered in 2021, and they arrived 3 years later in February 2024.
And they're in the shop already?
2 months later.
That's wonderful. Made in China? That's what I want to know. Made in China?
Through the chair, Alabama.
Alabama. Okay. Okay. So I will make the request to the chair. It's city of Cleveland, isn't it? What can I tell you? Okay. I'll make a request to the chair. As soon as they're repaired, if the director can tell us where they're going to go and what's the, what will be in the mobile units? I should ask that.
Sure.
Okay?
Yeah, through the chair, it's an extension of our clinical services, so it's
Okay.
for reproductive health care, being able to
Okay.
test and treat.
So then if you could tell us where they're going to go or how we would make a request to get them at a neighborhood function or whatever the case may be. So I make that officially through the chair to you, Director, and I hope to get that information. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you.
Thank you. And just out of curiosity, are these the trucks that we bought with ARPA money?
Through the chair, I don't think it was ARPA money.
Okay. All right. All right. Just we get the update. That's just really disappointing. I think the manufacturer need to be held accountable for that. So hopefully you can let us know what the manufacturer. I mean, they should be taken to the woodshed on
Through the
this.
chair, they've managed to fix both the other things. This is a late-breaking update that car wouldn't start, so
Okay.
hopefully something fixed. But
All right,
we
thank you.
agree. We're with you.
All right. Any other questions, Councilwoman Santana?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Through the chair to the director, what's the status of McCafferty? What is happening? Are they finally closing it down? Are they moving it?
Yeah, through the chair, Councilman McCormick has been involved with that, and the hope is that it will be RFP'd later this month or next month to be developed into affordable housing with the appropriate community engagement. And we're looking for a new home on the near west side. And so one of the folks that we've been talking to is Blanket Mills Project. And so we'll have a couple years to find a new home on the near west side to continue to serve our clients. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Councilman McCormick.
Thank you. Tried it very briefly, and I appreciate Councilman Santana's, and just for the public, because this has been a big debate in the community that I represent, that property will only be affordable housing. Right. Let me say that 10 times straight. Squash the rumors, the haters, the tweeters, the Facebookers. That is going to be affordable housing, period.
Thank you.
And he dropped the mic.
That's for the people who know who they are.
All right. Seeing no other questions, ordinance number 400-2024 stands approved. Please sign on. Thank you. Next up is ordinance number 371, Port Control. If Port Control can come up. 371-2024 by Council Members McCormick and Griffin. By departmental request, an emergency ordinance authorizing the Director of Port Control to exercise the first option to renew contract number MARC 2022-02 with Wausau Equipment, Inc. for services, maintenance, inspections, and parts necessary to maintain Wausau snow removal equipment for various divisions of the Department of Port Control. And I'm going to turn over the meeting to my colleague, Councilman McCormick, for a minute.
Alrighty, thank you, Chair. Commissioner, Chief, please proceed.
This is a renewal to exercise the first option. They work with our, for the snow equipment, so they assist our team. We do have our own team who does the repairs, but for parts and supplies and support, we need to renew this contract for our snow equipment.
Alrighty, and this was heard in Transportation Mobility and unanimously passed out for parts and supplies for snow equipment at the airport.
That's correct.
Yeah. Any questions on 371? Hearing none, 371-2024 is approved. Please sign. All right, I've got 372, 2024, by council members McCormick and Griffin by departmental request, authorizing the Director of Port Control to exercise the first option to renew contract number LS 2023-001 with BP Products North America, Inc. for the lease of city-owned property commonly known as the North Fuel Farm located at Cleveland Hopkins International Airport for the purpose of operating an aviation fuel storage and handling facility. Commissioner, or Chief, excuse me.
Thank you. Yes, this is just, again, it's an option that we would like to exercise. It provides fuel for various things on the airfield, and the term is, I think it's for the next 3 years. This was a 5-year lease. Oh, it'll expire, yes, 2027, 4 years.
All right, so this is exercising the term with BP of North America. And obviously, the couple people that work there do what, Chief?
They assist with fueling of vehicles and equipment.
Okay, so they're fueling
They're fueling.
the fueling services.
Services.
And you are happy with their services?
Yes, we are.
We assume that because
Yes, we
you're in
are.
front of us asking for renewal? Okay.
Yes.
Do we have any questions on fueling, requesting the first option for port control with BP North America?
I have a question in general before they leave the table.
Okay. Any questions on 372? Hearing none, ordinance 372, 2024 is approved. Please sign. All right. Next up, we've got 399. Is that your next on your list?
Yes.
Great. 2024, by council members McCormick and Griffin by departmental request, emergency ordinance to amend section 1 of ordinance number 255, 2023, passed April 10, 2023, relating to the design, installation, implementation, management, and maintenance of a neutral host distributed antenna system at Cleveland Hopkins International Airport. For those of you who are on the Transportation Committee and Finance, we did hear this last year and approved it. This is an amendment to that ordinance. Go ahead, Chief.
That's correct. Through the chair, we put this out for bid, and the reason we're here today is because based on the feedback we received back from the vendors, they needed a longer term to recapture their costs for this investment. So we are here today to just follow up to change that, and then we're going to take it back out to bid because that's what the vendors told us, and so that's all we're doing now is changing the term.
Thank you. So for the benefit of the Finance Committee, this is infrastructure that is being put on in the airport to help with internet access for customers in the airport. It does not cost the airport anything.
That is correct, through the chair. I'm doing my best to communicate through the IT department how I've learned how this works. It's a universal antenna that will help with cell connectivity at the airport. It will not cost the airport any money. It will provide greater reception for the users of it, and they can go out, whoever installs it, whoever receives the bid, to sell to as many of the companies, various
And the airport
cell providers.
system should make money off this, correct?
Yes, it will be a revenue generator for the airport
All right, and this
system.
is a non-aeronautical revenue, is that correct?
That is correct.
Which is what we like to hear.
That's what we like a lot of.
On
at
the airport, okay.
Yeah.
As a reminder, the non-aeronautical revenue at the airport improves our status for flights, lowers the cost, makes us a more attractive airport. Okay, and so we approved this last year, but what you're doing is you're changing the terms based on the feedback from the people that applied for the system, is that correct?
That's correct. When we put it out, we always do a call prior to bids being received, and this was the comment feedback we received.
Okay.
So we decided to change the term and take it back out.
So 2 questions we discussed, Chief and Committee. Number 1, does this impact or interfere with the terminal modernization plan in any way?
No, it does not.
Number 2, do we have the ability as an airport system, if need be, to alter or move this equipment if we find the case that we do have to alter or move it?
Yes, if there does need to be relocated for some reason, that provision will be built in so that we not to remove it entirely, but to relocate, yes.
Thank you. And what we discussed in transportation mobility, the example of a billboard that takes years of litigation to move, that will not be the case here, is that correct?
That is correct. That will not be the case.
So we retain authority to alter or move this if we deem necessary, is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay. What questions do we have on 399, 2024? This was approved by Transportation Mobility.
All right, seeing no other questions, ordinance number 399-2024 stands approved. Please sign on. Find my ink pen somewhere.
Is it right here?
That's it. All right, thank you. All right, thank you.
441.
Next one up is 441, 2024, by council members McCormick and Griffin, by departmental request an emergency ordinance authorizing the Director of Port Control to exercise the second option to renew contract CT 3001 LS 2023-0003 with Peritus Air for the lease of the city-owned space located in the terminal building at Burke Lakefront Airport at 1501 North Marginal Road to support its helicopter tour services for the Department of Port Control.
Yes, thank you. This is, to the chair, this is just an option of a lease term. They provide helicopter rides. It's for 114 square feet down in Burke Lakefront Airport.
Thank you. Councilman McCormick.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This piece was heard and supported by the Transportation Mobility Committee. Councilman Bishop, as he always does, brought up really good questions around fair market value and asked quite a few questions to the Assistant Director about that as well. But as we went through the process, we supported this legislation.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman.
Councilman, who asked? Bishop, Councilman Bishop.
Mr. Chairman, I request that we hold this piece of legislation. I requested some information in the transportation mobility, and I did not receive this. Mr. Chairman,
There information that you guys were supposed to get that we did not follow up on.
Through the chair, the information was sent.
And that was sent to who and for which one?
We sent it to the research team.
So it came out this morning and it just, or Friday? And then the committee got it when? Today. Councilman McCormick, could you
Chair,
and Councilman Bishop? what you
I
got?
will support Councilman Bishop's request, given that if he still wants to maintain it, given that it was sent out this morning.
Councilman Bishop? did you
Yes, Mr.
request?
Chairman.
All right, so we're going to, if we could, we'd like to just hold this for a piece until Councilman Bishop and Councilman McCormick gets a chance to confer about that piece, okay?
Okay.
Therefore, we're going to hold
441.
441-2024. 441-2024 will be heard. Please let us know when you ever get that. And whenever a council person asks for information, my point of reference should be send it to the policy team, but also CC that chair. So then that chair is aware as well, because that's who they usually is the quarterback of that committee, okay?
Okay.
All right, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, before these,
Oh, yeah, he had,
Councilman Pelisi.
thank you, Mr. Chairman, before these, my honorable colleague, before these seasoned employees leave the table, I'm just going to make a general statement. I'm hoping that you will do, the director and the staff will do something to address the constant barrage of what we're watching on TV weekly about people driving through the fences. It's almost become embarrassing. Well, it has become embarrassing that people continue to drive through the fences onto airport property. And this has gone on for so long, I cannot understand why this director and the previous director has not addressed the perimeter issue of the fencing being constantly penetrated. I mean, people watch this on TV and they say, why isn't someone responding to this? Why isn't there guardrail? Why aren't there bollards being put up? It's just, it's embarrassing. So I got to just tell you that, so you can take it back to the director. I mean, there comes a point, the perimeter of the airport has got to be secured. And people should not be allowed to continue to drive through perimeter fencing or gates onto airport property. So I'll leave it at that. You are two knowledgeable, well-intentioned employees, and I hope you will carry that back to the director. Thank you, Mr.
Chairman, on that point.
On that point, Councilman McCormick.
To Councilman, we actually talked about that at committee. So I'm going to, if I may, can I ask them to respond? Because we asked the question
Could we
at committee.
please?
Yes, through the chair. since you are not on the Transportation Committee, we are about halfway complete with the guardrail that is going around the most sensitive areas of the airfield and the fencing. And also, and we're considering maybe completing that this year, if not next year, the guardrail piece of it. Also, my colleague brought up at Transportation Committee that we are going to, there's a higher secure fence that's harder to break through, crash-proof, that we're hoping to obtain with AIP funds.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you, and we look forward to getting that information from you.
Thank you so much.
All right, next up, ordinance number, Human Resources. Ordinance number 413-2024 as amended. This is the hell piece. As amended by Councilmembers Santana and Griffin by departmental request to supplement the codified ordinances of Cleveland, Ohio, 1976 by enacting new section 14306 relating to applications for and acceptance of grants and other funding services from any public or private entity to place fellows and interns into various city departments. The amendment states there is no legal objection to this legislation if amended as follows. 1, in section 1, add new section 143.06. At the end, add the following. The appropriate director will notify the council in writing where and when the fellows and interns are placed. And in 143.06, line 2, after funds, insert up to $50,000, and in line 3, at the end, insert any grant that requires a cash match over $50,000 shall require additional legislative authority. This is for Human Resources, and Ms. Long, you have the floor.
Mr. Chair, to council members, Beverly Johnson is going to present the piece on behalf of Director Cole. She's the acting director for HR. I am available, and Janet Schiavone, if there are any questions.
All right, please proceed.
Oh, to the president.
And please pull your mic up to so that everybody can hear and feel right at home.
This piece is to authorize the Director of Human Resources or other applicable directors to apply for and accept fellowships and internship grants and other funding sources from any public or private entity for the placement of fellows and interns in the city departments.
Okay. Anything else you want to add, or anything else you want to add? Any guys? This is pretty much straightforward piece, and this is really the piece that basically allows us to have interns from like the Cleveland Foundation and other groups like that, right?
Yes.
Okay, all right. I don't have many questions. Do anybody else have any questions regarding 413-2024? Seeing no questions, ordinance number 413-2024 as amended stands approved. Thank you, ladies.
Thank you.
Last up is community development. Not sure. I haven't seen him. All right, this is ordinance number 369-2024 as amended by council members Hairston, McCormick, and Griffin, and House Jones and Starr. By departmental request, an emergency ordinance to amend Section 3 of ordinance number 531-2021, passed August 18, 2021, relating to accepting funds from the United States Treasury Department for purposes of implementing the Emergency Rental Assistance Program established under the American Rescue Plan Act of 2021 and authorizing contracts to implement. And it does have an amendment. The amendments are as follows. There is no legal objection to this legislation if amended as follows. Number 1, in the title, line 3, after 2021, strike the comma and insert and to supplement the ordinance by adding new sections 3A and 3B. Number 2, in section 1, add amended section 3, line 3, strike various entities, and in line 5, at the end, insert RQS 8006 RL 2024-43. Number 3, Insert new Section 3 to read as follows. Section 3, that ordinance number 531-2021 passed August the 18th, 2021 is supplemented by adding new sections 3A and 3B to read as follows. Section 3A, the Director of Community Development shall provide all members of council a quarterly report detailing how the funds were spent. Section 3B, that any notice sent to residents who are receiving assistance under this ordinance shall include a provision that the assistance is providing through a partnership with the City of Cleveland, Cleveland City Council, and the Biden-Harris administration. Excellent amendment, Anthony Hairston. Next one is number 4, renumber existing Section 3 to new Section 4. Date 5/10/24, signed by Jonathan McGorry, Assistant Director of Law. Assistant Director Mikhail Wackers, you have the floor.
Thank you, Council President and members of the committee. This is a request to amend previous legislation that authorized the use of emergency rental assistance, the Tranche 2 funding that was authorized under ARPA in 2021. We have about a year left to be able to spend these funds. There's around $4.8 million if we move forward with this amendment to be able to spend. Our previous partner, CHN, had done a significant amount of rental assistance, but they want to exit that space. And in looking for a viable way forward, CMHA did a partnership with CHN at the end of last year to see how they can spend down the funds. They were able to spend down $1.9 million. And we are looking now to sort of continue that forward. CMHA learned a lot, and we feel confident they can do the reporting requirements and documentation requirements necessary for this program. And we're asking that we can contract with CMHA as a result so that we can expend the rest of the funding by the timeline of September of next year. I'm happy to answer any questions that the council may have.
Thank you. I know that I have Polisic and Casey up. However, before I go to Chairman Hairston, I do want to ask, 4.8 million, is this part of the old rules, or were they, because they couldn't put their money in the loss recovery. So does that mean that this is under the old rules, which means that that 4.8 million has to be allocated this year and spent by 2026? Or is this being put in a pot where they have more flexibility like we did with the funds that we put, the Fund 10s that we put the money in?
So this is a separate pot of money than the sort of the 500 million that the city of Cleveland received. So it's solely for the purpose of rental assistance. It was allocated under ARPA, but it is not the same sort of ARPA money that council is probably challenging to try and get out and spent. These funds were allocated for rental assistance. They provide assistance for up to 12 months for people who are of low income, and can be spent on anyone that has a rental hardship, such as back rent. I'm happy to answer any other questions.
Councilman Harrison, this was heard in DPS.
Yes, Mr. Chair. This was heard in DPS. Very lengthy discussion around these dollars and why they weren't able to be expended and why CMHA are the recipients of these dollars. As explained by A.D. Wackers, they believe that CMHA can get these dollars out in the time required and can produce the reporting requirements that will be necessary for the expansion of these dollars. We did ask for some information. We did receive the quarterly report from A.D. Wackers. However, 2 pieces of the information we did not receive. Have you not received that yet, Mr. Wackers, through the chair?
We have not provided those yet. I believe it was the balances for CHN. I'm still trying to get that. Unfortunately, I have a budget manager who's out on vacation, but I'm happy. I will be able to provide that as soon as I can deliver it. But I do know it's around 4.8 million. That's the decertified balance. So that's why I'm confident in.
Mr. Chair, we had asked for a more accurate accounting of the balance that we had in the pot here. They wanted to get a clear understanding of what's left over to be expended. We also asked for the number of units that CMHA has per ward as well. We also asked for another piece of information. Again, we received one of the 4 pieces of information that we did request. It's the committee's prerogative whether they want to move forward or not. However, I would say, as the director indicated, we have a bit of a timeline that we need to get these dollars out so that way we do not send these dollars back to the Treasury Department. And I know there was some discussion around, why all Clevelanders did not have access to these dollars anymore. And it would only be limited to those who are residing in CMHA properties or in those who will receive housing choice voucher program assistance. That's for the scatter sites. I don't know if they call them scatter sites, but who receives Section 8, who receives a voucher for living assistance there in a landlord-tenant property. They did indicate that they had enough of a waiting list in order to expend the $4+ million. And didn't see any issues with getting those dollars out. And yes, it was a tag team effort between me and Councilman McCormick to require this reporting, that this funding was a joint effort between the individuals that you read. It was important that we highlight the work that our federal partners are doing and also the work that we're doing here locally as well, Mr. Chair.
So we didn't get the information, Councilman, and I don't know how timely this is, but where are you at with this? Because I know that's what we usually want to make sure that we get information.
Sure. Yes, again, we received one of the 4 pieces of information that we asked for. I'm torn because of the individuals that this is going to help, right? But I'm also we're serious about when we ask for this information before it is passed, that information is received by this body. So, Mr. Chair, again, I'm torn a bit here because the folks who are living in those CMHA properties are in great need for this support. And not every ward has a CMHA-owned property, but I'm sure every ward has someone who receives a housing choice voucher program as well that may be behind on their rent or need assistance.
So let's do this. Mr. Wackers, when does your guy get back?
The 20th for the funding.
The 20th?
CMHA was supposed to provide the unit count by ward.
Okay, so let me, I'm confident, Mr. Harrison, that I can get CEO Patterson to give us that information ASAP. I will tell you that I'm a little bit torn as well because we want to be diligent to get the information that we ask for. But I share Councilman Harrison's point that we don't want to hold people up by keeping this money in the pipeline because of a technicality. How soon can we get this information?
Chair, I will work with Finance to get the necessary information I need on the funding balances in addition to the decerts before the 20th, so I can try.
All right, so then here's what we'll do. We'll, Councilman, let me ask you this question. Do you feel comfortable that we move this? Then we'll just make sure that we will stay on with Director Wackers to get this information. If we don't get it, then I'm sure that there's going to be other legislation that will be coming our way that we will remember this day. Or did you want to wait till next week?
Mr. Chair, I'm fine with waiting until next week. I doubt a week.
All right, let's hold it till next week until you can get this information, okay?
Thank you.
All right, so we're going to hold it. We're going to hold ordinance number 369-2024 till next Monday in order to get more information that we requested.
Mr. Chair, if I can add.
Please do.
There was a reason why we wanted that information, because some members were concerned about, others in their neighborhoods not receiving support, what that impact looks like across the city of Cleveland and so forth. So, it wasn't just a request just to make a request. It was a meaningful request of why we asked for that information, including the fund balances as well.
Mr. Wackers, can you make sure that we get that information so that we can move this forward? Because we all want to make sure that these folks get this service, okay?
Will do. Thank you.
Thank you. Miscellaneous, Councilman.
I just had a question for Mr.
On this, on the
Yes,
legislation
yeah.
or miscellaneous?
The legislation.
On this legislation, and then I'll come to
Okay,
miscellaneous. Go
Mr.
ahead,
Chairman, I
Mr.
would hope
Garcia.
with the information you bring is to how one applies now that it's changed. But see, if you're an individual, how do you apply? That's what I want to know. Okay, thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Ms. Saban and Ms. Odie Martins, can you make sure you add that to the list? How do you apply? Councilman Hairston?
Just briefly, it was at the committee explained that they have, I forget the name of the internal system that they have, that has everyone in their, across their properties who are behind on their payments that they're required to make, and they will go in internally and apply those payments, and they will also send the notices to them to let them know that the balance has been paid, just as they did with folks who applied for rental assistance through CHN previously.
All right.
We'll get a better description.
Yeah, if we could just make sure we get that documented so that we could have a clear
Yes.
understanding.
Because what if you're not in CMHA housing? That's what you know.
Well, so Councilman Polisic wants to know, what if you're not in CMHA housing? Is it
That's
still
the-
rental assistance? So that's so CHN still does have a pot?
They do not have a pot of rental assistance anymore.
Okay, so then the only ones that would apply for this one would be CMHA residents,
Correct.
Okay.
okay? So if you can get that information for us, let us know, and that's why we need the numbers and everything else. I will tell you that one of the things CMHA is going through right now is that they're going through a review because the federal government has said that they need to fill up more of their units. So I'm not sure if that pertains to scattered housing or if that pertains to public housing, but that's one reason why they might be able to boost their numbers by getting having these vouchers. So if we can get that information, that'd be helpful. And please get a clarification. Councilman Brian Casey on miscellaneous.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just real quick, Director, I know I've spoken to a number of individuals in the administration regarding this, but on this side of the table, there's a decorum that we maintain, and I don't want to sound petty or not, but you're here representing the administration, and we would appreciate it if you could put a tie on, or at least a jacket on before you come to the table. I know that you've been here before like this. I don't want to, I've had this conversation with even the mayor himself regarding this, but if you could please do us a favor and come to the table dressed with decorum. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it. All right. Hearing no other questions, this committee of finance, diversity, equity, and inclusion is adjourned. Next call with the chair Monday,